Cool. Welcome into NFL Ski Week 18 finale, week finale, NFL season finale, kind of wrapping up into the playoffs. It's me, David, joined by Carl as always. Um, kind of ready to just wrap up the season, preview some of the playoffs. And sorry we missed a few weeks, but we're kind of ready to. I think it was just a little bit awkward timing with holidays, but then also just those week 17, 18 topics get kind of monotonous, I think, as well, Carl. So I almost like don't even mind skipping them sometimes. But yeah, I'm ready to go, man. Playoffs are here. Any opening statements?
Yeah, we've got some breaking news. Literally, as we're getting the show all dialed in, ready to go, Adam Schefter reports that the Dallas Cowboys have denied permission to the Chicago Bears to interview Mike McCarthy. So cross him off your wide net that the Bears are casting. Overall feelers, if you guys are, for some chance, finding the videos on NFL Ski, and have not watched the video yesterday that we did that was more specific to the Bears, we encompassed the Bears beating the Packers, which was fantastic at the sacrifice of a couple draft positions. It's not the end of the world. But I'm excited to kind of get out of that and talk more playoffs because, as you might not know, the Bears are not going to go to the playoffs this year, Dave.
Breaking news. Yeah, breaking news yet again. Bears are not making the playoffs. That's so tragic. Um, Yeah, man. I don't know about you. The Bears really put a really bad taste in my mouth this year. I am looking forward to the playoffs just because I think the NFL probably has the best playoffs of any sport.
Bar
Probably
none.
by a mile. Probably, yeah, exactly. Bar
I,
none, by a
I don't
country
I don't want
mile.
to cut you off, but
No, go for it.
I
Please.
think that in the sports where you've got honestly the rest of the big sports in America are all 7 game series, right? Sometimes they're a 5 game series to start. Baseball
Yeah.
definitely 7 games. Basketball is. Hockey is. We won't talk about soccer. It's not a big sport in the U.S.
Mhm.
But similarly to football, soccer has a competition called the Champions League, and that's 2 legs at your stadium and their stadium. But the best part about the NFL playoffs, in my opinion, is one and done. Any given Sunday to the highest degree, and that's what makes it the most fun, in my opinion.
I almost want upsets this year. I don't know. Maybe I'm rooting right now. I'm kind of like hating on football while simultaneously loving it. So I kind of like root for chaos. This one, Flaming Elmo meme is like my favorite root for chaos meme,
Absolutely.
and that's just my 100% right now mood towards these NFL playoffs. All these 1 seeds, I want them out. I want these 2 seeds out. I want the Rams to win. I want the Commanders to win because I don't fucking care. Um, I'm kind of just into it for the championship. So.
And a certain co-host slash the host of a certain Bears Country Productions channel will tell you, "Oh, I would love for the Lions to win." And I've got a girlfriend at home who is a Vikings fan. I'm sorry, I don't want the NFC North teams to even win 1 game, let alone win the Super Bowl. So absolutely, let's do the Elmo meme. Let's do the chaos. I'm all for that.
Yeah. I don't I wouldn't take it personally because I feel like the Lions are a likable team and there's a lot of likability. I don't know. I guess across the NFC. But my jealousy can't overcome just saying fuck them and like give it to Philadelphia, that scumbag meth town. Just don't
Yeah,
care.
Fentanyl Philly. Sorry to ruin the Bearski side of things, but no, I don't want the Eagles to win either. And I'm not sure if you've seen the thumbnail that took me forever to throw together, but I finally actually think I have a team that I'm okay with winning from the NFC.
And I'm gonna take a wild guess and say it is the Rams.
No, no.
No,
In anything in my messed up head, I'd want McVay to be slandered and have a higher chance of us being the Bears trading for
fair point.
McVay, which
Don't
is
tell me it's
possible.
Washington.
Which is possible. Absolutely not. But Courtney Cronin today did report, and I'm not sure if we'll talk about this much at all, but
Mhm.
it's possible that the Bears could trade for a coach. Very unlikely, but it's still alive. It's possible. Spoiler alert, the team that I'm rooting for in these playoffs from the NFC side of things is Baker Mayfield's Buccaneers. But
Oh, that's so
once they
true.
eventually get bounced, then it's all hands on deck for either the Bills or
Yep.
the last coach to win a legitimate NCAA championship, and that being Jim Harbaugh's Chargers.
I'm with you. I kind of like that. That's very similar to my power ranking. It's not spot on, but thank you to anybody who's already watching. Daniel Jeffries, love Daniel. Great comments always. Great show yesterday. Agreed.
Appreciate that.
I rewatched a few of those giggles, and that was pretty funny. So yeah, great. And then salute to King Book World and Carl. Apparently, like you said, you are not the greatest speller.
It's out of just being lazy. I think Dave will let me get away with the correct spelling, but maybe if I find myself on the Thursday show on Bears Country Productions, then I'll keep it modest. So
Yeah. I think Carl's more modest than me and Paul are anyway at this point. So anytime you're on Bearsky, I think you get the green light.
yeah, there was a
Just say whatever
certain
the hell
comment
you
that
want.
didn't sit right with me yesterday. I mean, I see where you're coming from, and when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, I would have to agree with you as far as someone being injured. But again, I don't want to see any of that, and especially now with the playoffs, right? I don't want these playoffs to be something where okay, you won, but at the end of the game, your quarterback got hurt. Now we're talking about a quarterback missing time going into next year, even though you're a playoff team. That would suck, and I don't care what team that is.
Oh no! If Jordan Love was out for this year and next year, I'd be happy. But I know what you're saying. But you can't convince me otherwise. That hatred is deep. Prometheus, thanks for always watching, man. You're the best. And then King Book World, agreed. So happy for Baker. He's the most likable player I think I've seen in a while. In terms
He's
of
got
quarterback
this
position.
good balance of fuck you and charisma and respectability. He's just got everything, man. He's the one player that I kind of would take over Caleb Williams just from the vibes. And it's really, really close, but talent-wise, I think Caleb's better.
Charisma, and
Can be better.
I think what it ends up being is the underdog story for him and like that overcoming thing. And funny that you put those two guys in the same sentence because I feel like Caleb Williams' career path is going to just be almost identical to Baker, minus like the team skipping around. But I mean,
I hope there's no team skipping. After Kevin Warren was asked about his general manager in those comments, it sounds like that could open the door for a new general manager for the Bears and a new quarterback if we don't get an all-pro season out of Caleb in 2 years. So
yeah, for the sake of Bearsky Paul watching, we're going to talk about the Bears at the end, so he doesn't have a little aneurysm. But yeah, very, very funny comments from the Bears presser. It's almost borderline NFL news how bad that press conference was. Just because it's so worth talking about how the Bears run this franchise. But yeah, just the vitriol for Baker, and then yeah. So moving on to kind of like the playoffs and going from there. I kind of wanted to just do a quick review, maybe division by division. I think team by team was a little bit hard. So I'm going to try to make it quick because I think we end up starting with these good ideas that maybe are supposed to be quick, but then end up being running a little long. So I kind of just wanted to throw one at you, see if you like the vibe, and we can kind of power through. But I was going through division by division. Obviously, I didn't write down. We didn't do NFL ski from like preseason week 1 or week 1 total and ranking the standings and the power rankings of each division, but we definitely had our ideas. I'm sure you do, and I'm sure you remember them pretty well. And like just kind of going through the division standings and kind of what stood out and what kind of went through it. Let's start with like the AFC East. So just kind of giving you the idea of how this segment was kind of going to go in my head. Watching the AFC East, Buffalo ends up being on top, 13-4. Miami, New York, and then New England. Kind of just starting with the part that never surprised me at all. I think New England was going to be bad. I don't know if I thought they were going to be this bad, but none of it surprised me at all. The Jets, depending on who you asked, they were Super Bowl favorites or an absolute dumpster fire. I thought they were going to be a dumpster fire more than the good team in that division. So the Jets, I don't know. The talent was there. I think they're similar to the Bears in the way that the structure just creates chaos, and that chaos leads to just poor play. The Dolphins, I think, are appropriately placed, like borderline playoff team. I don't think they're that good. I don't know what their next move is either, other than maybe getting some assets for Tyreek Hill, kind of hitting a soft reset. I don't think Tua is very good. I think Mike McDaniel's pretty good. And the Buffalo Bills, to me, are just like the most pleasant surprise. We talked about Baker Mayfield being like that underdog story that's like so pleasant and makes you cheer for him. I mean, the Bills, if you asked me at the beginning of the year, we're going like through basically a major rebuild. And it's kind of shocking what they were able to pull off. Josh Allen obviously deserves the MVP, maybe him or Lamar. Lamar might be one of those Michael Jordan players that probably deserves it every year, but you just can't give it to him every year statistically. But yeah, Buffalo, man, great season from them. And any other comments on the AFC East? I was surprised with Buffalo the most pleasantly.
I wouldn't say that I was surprised by Buffalo because I don't know if I have documented me saying that Mr. Josh Allen was going to be the MVP, but I said that he was a top flight quarterback and that no one should sleep on him. But I did think that the Jets would be a lot better than they were. I had kind of conceded to the fact that Aaron Rodgers is the boogeyman, kind of a see it till I believe it situation. And I just thought that even coming off the Achilles that he would be better. But man, he's washed. So I was thinking maybe the Jets would be a team that could get a positive record, maybe 9 wins, miss the playoffs. Wouldn't have been surprised with 10 wins and getting into the playoffs. But it's a pleasant surprise. I hate Aaron Rodgers. Outside of that, though, like you said, Dolphins, maybe we're a playoff team, but because of that circumstance I just explained, they probably were going to always have a negative record and miss the playoffs. The Patriots, I didn't think they'd be as bad as they were. Ironic that they missed out on having the number 1 overall pick because there's as bad of a team in the NFL. Thankfully to them, they did get it right with their quarterback. They got a nice one, but their head coach was so bad that the prearranged marriage, and this is kind of not correct in the sense that he was fired for just being bad, but the fact of the matter is the New England Patriots are clearing the deck for Mike Vrabel. That is just a fact. They are getting all of their Rooney rules out of the way, which is really sad to see. We're seeing guys like Byron Leftwich come out of the corridors, the woodwork, to get random interviews, maybe potentially undeserving, which sucks because he was a name that was hot at one point and something went south. But all that to say, really not surprised with how the AFC East has ended up in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think props to you for seeing that Buffalo thing coming. I didn't see it. And I think that Buffalo somehow is going to be even better next year. So, good for them.
I think
that division.
I didn't mention that I thought Stephon Diggs was addition by subtraction as well. Because it always seemed like in the playoffs he was coming up short, wasn't helping his quarterback as much as he had done in the regular season. And he has always been a guy that I've tagged as a locker room cancer. And that's really easy for me to say as a Bears fan, a.k.a. Stephon Diggs, the Bears killer. Really sad to see him hurt, by the way, too. Hopefully he can figure that out, but I don't think that his next team will be Buffalo next year.
Well, would it be the Houston Texans either, or no?
It could potentially be the Texans, ironically, because of what happened to Tank Dell. If you don't know what happened to Tank Dell, he not only dislocated his kneecap, but had several torn ligaments in his knee. Just a terrible, terrible sight. So if they want to keep it up with having some top-flight receivers around their young quarterback, who isn't even the best in his draft class, C.J. Stroud, they might want to re-sign Diggs, and Diggs might take a team-friendly deal at that point because he's old, coming off an ACL injury.
Yeah. I think the interesting fun fact, because I think that Tank Dell injury was so freaking gnarly. I basically read that that's the equivalent of separating your entire shin bone from your thigh and everything just kind of floating inside of your legs.
Yes. The word floating, unfortunately, is very appropriate for that situation, and there wasn't much really keeping it there outside of the skin. It's a terrible, terrible situation,
It was
and
wild.
I feel awful.
Yeah, it was gnarly. So kind of just moving through these divisions, just kind of wrapping up the season and how it ended up. If you want to touch on the AFC North first, I can give you the rundown. Baltimore with first place, 12-5. Pittsburgh at 10-7. Cincinnati at 9-8, and Cleveland at 3-14.
Let me break some news just to the live audience as well, because I don't even think that you saw this, but Dan Graziano of ESPN is reporting that the Bears are planning to interview former Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll for their fake vacant head coaching job on Thursday. If you guys want to stick around, we probably are going to end up talking some Bears and maybe even like a general coaching carousel later on, but I just thought it'd be appropriate to kind of get that out as fast as I saw it. And Chad Spieger, hi in chat. You are the one who kind of tipped me off to that, so thank you.
That's pretty great.
The AFC North. Am I surprised that Baltimore won? No. I am even less surprised that the Pittsburgh Steelers, appropriately named the Schittsburg Steelers, started 10-3 and are now not only 10-7, but are very well going to go one and done and get bounced in Baltimore. Little spoiler for when we start doing predictions. I'm very disappointed in the Cincinnati Bengals, though. The Bengals, I know in a tough division, it'd be hard to do, but I could definitely have seen the Bengals getting 10 wins, the Ravens getting 10 wins, and the Steelers getting 9 wins. Ironically, too, the Browns, I didn't think that they'd be a top 5 pick, 3-14. I thought that their quarterback would have been able to figure it out. Thankfully, he didn't because he's a scumbag. But overall, not too many surprises. I'm just disappointed I don't get to watch the best quarterback wide receiver combination since Manning and Harrison. We're not going to get to see that in the playoffs, and that saddens me.
Yeah. Same as you. I wasn't surprised at all by Baltimore. Pittsburgh, I guess, kind of surprised me because between the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields thing, I didn't really have much hope with their quarterback position. It ended up kind of shaking out the way I thought it might at the beginning of the year. So that's not super surprising, but it's a little bit more of a wet fart at the end of the party kind of thing rather than how it looked at the beginning. Joe Burrow, man, I love him. I think he's probably my favorite pure player. Like, just if I have just a crush on one football player in football, it has nothing to do with him being handsome. I mean, more of just his like psychopath type of mentality. Him coming out of LSU, I thought there was a pretty decent chance he wasn't going to be that good. I mean, he was good in college. I didn't expect to translate that directly. I did hear a funny anecdote. I don't know how true it is, but Joe Burrow was like analyzed by a therapist for his parents when he was like 12 or like 15 or something. And the guy was like, he has one of those rare things that first responders and like military vets have where their where their heart rate stays at 60 in the middle of gunfire. And once I heard that, I was like, yep, that sounds about right. Joe Burrow does kind of strike me as like,
and that feels like a weird thing to kind of pump out there to boost up your, I don't know if it'd be your son at that point or whatever the case is. Like, that has to be real. And I haven't heard that before, but that's downright shocking. That's awesome.
it's awesome, and I feel like it's rare, but the like Tom Brady type of mentality, right? Where his blood pressure probably his hand never shook kind of thing. So that's why I like Joe Burrow. And then like you said, Cleveland, fuck them. Fuck Deshaun Watson. I feel bad for Cleveland actually though, because it's a shitty sports town. I root for shitty sports towns kind of just in general. I mean, I live in one. And yeah, the other part of that is I think they are literally the one team in the NFL that needs to overcome the quarterback position. And after yesterday, when we talked about Aaron Rodgers being a clear Pittsburgh Steelers, I thought maybe if you can, it'd be the funniest quarterback room of all time. But Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers in Cleveland would be a great next season type of collapse. But yeah, nothing too shocking out of the AFC North. I did think the Bengals were going to be worse because I think the Bengals team is just not that good, but Joe Burrow just kind of overcomes so much with that team. And Cleveland should have been better, but it makes sense why they were this bad.
Yeah, I mean, it did kind of play out for the Bengals exactly as I thought. I thought that it would be Joe Burrow and company dragging the entire team up. I just didn't think that the defense was as bad as it was, but it's terrible. I'm pretty sure they fired their defensive coordinator. It's going to be a sad story when T. Higgins leaves, because I'm pretty sure he's going to, and he's a really good player as well. They've got the model, ideal wide receiver room for anyone in the live chat right now. We talked about this on the show yesterday. Instead of a Bears and to a lesser extent Texans approach where you've got 3 top flight receivers, it's so much better to have kind of 2 top flight receivers, a 1A and a 1B, and then just kind of that third guy who knows his role and plays it as best as he can. And that's what the Bengals are.
I think the better the quarterback becomes, it's almost a better, like you said, the addition by subtraction thing.
Yep.
Is when they're young and they need some help. It's nice to have a few really nice weapons that can just kind of overcome. But by the time the quarterback is settled in and they're about 6 years, 7 years in, and they're this good, I think it's one of those times where I do feel bad. T. Higgins on the Bengals probably should just stay there forever. But I know you don't believe in the cap. The cap is real to an extent. They just can't. I mean, the Bengals are notoriously cash poor and they can't pay Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and T. Higgins like 60% of cap space. So it is what it is. But moving through AFC South, what a dumpster fire of a division. I hate the AFC South. It's probably my least favorite division in football. Texans ended up on top. I don't really like that team very much. I think next to the Bears, I kind of followed them the rest of the year as one of my biggest disappointments of the season in general. Not necessarily by win total, because 10-7 is pretty good, but that team just does not look ready for the playoffs. And I think in any other division, they are probably a 500 team at best.
Yeah, 10-7 when you've got the number 1 overall pick and the number 5 overall pick in your division. Like that's not as good as you think it is.
No, and in their division they were 5-1. So even against like the Colts, if they split, they're still 5-1. That's 5 easy wins. That's half your win total. And the rest of that dumpster fire division, I mean, what are you going to say? So you would think the Steelers are getting bounced out in the first round, buddy. I got news for you. There's a worse team out there in the AFC, and that's Texans. So
and it's ironically probably due to, in part, the team went all in. I don't know if they went a Bears approach and neglected the offensive line as opposed to getting everything else. I feel like there weren't too many obvious offensive line improvements in free agency that they could have made that ended up kind of, with egg on their face. But they traded for Stephon Diggs. They went ahead and signed Danielle Hunter to a huge contract, and those are good players. But their quarterback just wasn't what they thought they were. CJ Stroud is not even the best quarterback out of his draft class. We'll talk about the NFC South. Bryce Young's a better quarterback, man, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy for Bryce Young. That comeback is not anything to kind of dismiss, I don't think. But
shout out Dave Canales, the best football mind in the NFL.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, that we can get into that, but I was thinking about that literally on my drive home where whoever the Bears hire, if the first half of the season sucks, I can tolerate that. But a good coach will not let it happen the whole way, not the whole year, because Dave Canales proved that. If you can turn the Panthers around mid-year, any coach that's worth his weight is going to be able to turn any team, really.
If Dave Canales was in the pool for the Bears currently, I'd hire him over Ben Johnson, but missed on that one too, man.
Yeah, I don't know how I would have felt about that last year, so I can't tell you how you felt about Dave Canales last year.
Yeah, it's definitely a nail in the coffin situation now, but
yeah. Indy 8-9, I think is almost a positive, because I think Indianapolis sucks. I think their GM sucks. I think their coach sucks. I think their quarterback sucks. And when you're across the board almost as bad as the Bears, I think the Bears actually beat them in the quarterback category. Maybe not the GM or the coach, but I think 8-9 is a miracle. Good for them. But yet again, same thing. They were 3-3 in the division. It's easy to do that.
They have so many fantastic pieces, right? Offensive line, Quentin Nelson could be the All-Pro this year. Kenny Moore could be the best slot cornerback in the NFL. I love DeForest Buckner. I think that he'd maybe dealt with some injuries this year. I cannot remember.
And he's old. He's like 32 too. So
exactly. But then you've got the locker room situation, which of course Pat McAfee, the former Colts punter, brought to light that there's some issues. Then the article started to come out of the woodwork where DeForest Buckner had to sit down Anthony Richardson and say, essentially, "What's your problem? I signed an extension here because of you, and you're playing like you know what." I am actively scrambling to find a piece of data from my favorite piece of data collections, that being Football Insights, and I wanted to just show off just how bad Anthony Richardson is. Unfortunately, I feel that I'm going to fail in this endeavor, so I'm going to have to save that for another day. Yeah.
Well, we'll keep looking. We'll go through the Jaguars and the Titans. Same way with the Jaguars. I don't even know what to do with the Jaguars. I respect their ownership group. Honestly, what the hell is there in Jacksonville? Just move that team, give them a fresh start, give them a fresh paint job. That's one of those teams in Madden I would just take and move cities and move logos and just kind of give them a fresh coat of paint.
So there's a huge problem right now.
Also sucks too. So
there's a huge problem with the Jaguars right now, and it's that yes, they've got, because one of your statements or quotes or comments that I really adore is you can't tell where the stink is coming from. It feels like with the Jaguars, a lot of stink is associated with their general manager. And if the Jaguars chose to move on from their general manager, in addition to their now former head coach, Doug Peterson, they would probably be the front runner for Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson could be a guy who could elevate Trevor Lawrence up closer to the status of what he's getting paid. Never would ever be able to, get that value back for that money. He's way overpaid. But they decided to keep their general manager. So they're not going to get Ben Johnson. The Lions did accept the interview requests for both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn from the Bears, but I don't know if they've actively accepted that from the Jaguars at this point. So they might be screwed out of that.
A fun story for you, actually, today, if you haven't seen it, I can break that news to you, is Shad Khan. I don't know if you've ever seen him. He kind of looks like a caricature of like a movie villain with like the twisted mustache and stuff.
Okay.
I believe he owns part of the WWE, or him and his son run it. So they're, they have different avenues of success and whatever. But Shad Khan's like one of those Vince McMahon modeling types. He doesn't have like the personality for it, but he has the like same business acumen. So Shad Khan is in a Zoom interview with a reporter today, and Trent Baalke, who's their GM, is side by side in the Zoom. It's literally the way we're talking right now. This is the picture, the video on Twitter, and the reporter goes to Shad Khan. What would you say to a coach like Mike Vrabel or like Ben Johnson, who insists on potentially having a new like GM in place to kind of partner up with them? And then Shad Khan goes, while he's in the room with Trent Baalke in the Zoom interview, he says, well, I'd have them present their case. And if they made a good case, well, then I guess Trent Baalke would be gone. And Trent Baalke just sitting there with the Curb Your Enthusiasm music playing, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It was... So Ben Johnson's not off the table because Shad Khan, to Trent Baalke's face, said, like, if Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel want to come here and if they say you're out, your ass is out. So Trent Baalke's not good, I agree, but not a nail in that coffin yet either.
Breaking news for people who aren't Bears fans: you did not get that on Ryan Poles today. So
not
quite
whatsoever.
the opposite.
Yeah.
So
Kevin Warren wasn't totally off.
Yeah, but there shouldn't be any gray area, right? It should be a yes or a no, in my opinion.
Well, we're doing another lame duck year for another person, so fuck them.
What a surprise, right?
Yeah.
Before it gets lost in translation, if you want to throw up my screen just real quick.
Absolutely.
So this is, again, courtesy of Football Insights on Twitter. You can see their Twitter handle right up here. This chart is according to, it says fantasy points. I don't know if that's using like a certain medium, but it feels like it's pretty consistent, right? What it's saying is that it's the charted off target throw percentages directionally to moving receivers, okay? So horizontal, Anthony Richardson is almost at 50% off target throws. He is just so far away from everyone else. He doesn't belong in the NFL in that sense. Vertical, he's almost average, right? There are quarterbacks who are more accurate than him, but players like, ironically, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, they're more inaccurate as far as, I guess this would be their off-target throws, right? Yeah. So for every time they're off-target, Caleb Williams, it's saying that you're about 85% of his off-target throws are horizontal, so above, could be below, but probably above. He overthrows. And then Anthony Richardson, vertical, that's just an anomaly. It just looks so weird, man.
It does.
He's just not a good quarterback.
When you think
throwing
about
the
horizontal throws in the NFL, we're not talking horizontal 40 yards down the field. They're probably like 10 yards in front of you because they're drag routes.
Right, yeah.
Routes.
That'd be like if I'm throwing to the center of your body, but it's going off the fucking camera. Like that bad.
Yeah.
And there's even whispers of like genuine concern for him and just saying, you know what, let's revive your career and turn you into a running back. Like those are jokes for Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields, but that's legitimate concern for Anthony Richardson. That's terrible.
For a guy who was the 4th pick based on his combine tape, and that's why I tell people do not watch combine. It's a hilarious thing. The NFL has convinced everybody that you need to watch to know about football.
And that's when ownership, who doesn't watch a lick of whatever it's called, they don't watch a lick of tape. They're going to be at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis to I can't think of the word right now. Communicate with each other. Network. So like all of a sudden, oh my God, Xavier Worthy just ran the 40-yard dash, a new record-breaking time. We gotta get him. Things like that. So
yeah. So rounding out AFC North, Tennessee. I didn't think they were that bad. I mean, I watched them only really like one game. I guess they were. Will Levis is bad. I didn't think much of Brian Callahan for his first year as a head coach. Obviously, your record is what you says. It says you are. However, the logjam at the bottom this year in the NFL was so bad that they are in the same category to me as like the Browns, the Raiders, the Patriots. So they were just smart and lost that last game. Good for them to get that first overall pick. And they are another team that that released their general manager, Ron Carthon. So they're on their third general manager in 3 years. Good job, Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm very, very proud that the Tennessee Titans went out and tried to buy an entirely new team, and this is what the result was. Warms my heart. You shouldn't be able to just go from worst to best via free agency. Free agency should be a tool, and it makes it fun. But you've got to, for consistency's sake and to make a real good team for real long, you've got to build through the draft, in my opinion.
Oh man, King Book World. Even King Book World, I think, was around when I was doing fantasy football, and we did a fantasy football preview show on week 1, and we had a segment of I just don't fucking get it. I just don't fucking get it. And then everybody presented their player who they didn't fucking get, and mine was Anthony Richardson. So I never understood that, and fuck them. So for selling me on Anthony Richardson being like the next best thing. I never believed that for a second. But you want to start off with the AFC West? I think this is probably the best conversation in the AFC. So you got Kansas City at 15-2, first place Los Angeles at 11-6, Denver 10-7, third place, and the Las Vegas Raiders at 4-13. And for anybody who hasn't seen the news yet, we're breaking a lot of news. Antonio Pierce was officially fired today, by the way.
That's after Sears Tower had stuck his neck all the way out and said, sources, Antonio Pierce will not be fired. Well, if you had any sort of credibility on that account, I would unfollow and block that account because that account needs to be deleted. Total bullshit. Now, it's interesting because is there a chain reaction going on in that situation? Have the Raiders fired Antonio Pierce in hopes that their new partial owner, Tom Brady, can persuade Mike Vrabel from not saving the Patriots, but instead coming to be the head coach in New England? I think that what Vrabel brings to the table as far as stability and accountability and just being a good leader of men, you need that in a city like Las Vegas. So I think he would be a great fit in Las Vegas. As far as the quality of the product of the football field, terrible. Their quarterback situation was dire to start the season, never got any better. Kudos to them. They did hit a home run with their great tight end. He's going to be a good tight end for a long time. He's actually a Pro Bowler this year. But to be 4th and 13 in this division, there's no surprises. You've got the Super Bowl favorite Chiefs. You've got the Chargers, who are slept on and have a very talented quarterback. And the big surprise, the Denver Broncos. Oh my God, what Sean Payton is doing with Bo Nix is why I keep banging the drum for trade for a head coach, because that's the result that it can net you.
Yeah. Same thing with the Raiders. Raiders are going to Raider. I never really put much stock into them as a team, period. And I don't feel bad for them for losing. I don't understand how you're supposed to have an NFL team in Las Vegas when your entire company, it's like having tech developers in like San Francisco, but maybe that's not even the right kind of parallel to draw. But it's like, what do you expect when you give a bunch of young 22-year-olds a bunch of millions of dollars and put them in Las Vegas to work there? I don't
essentially
know
a social experiment. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it's a crazy. I'd love that reality show. There should be a Hard Knocks Raiders every year, just then like fully X-rated. It'd be hilarious.
But have it be to the point where they don't know it. That would be fucking cool. But then once it's released the first time, then the cat's out of the bag. So
yeah, that'd be a great like Big Brother style, hidden cameras everywhere. But Broncos, man, like I'm with you. That is a full on just bang the drum. That is the example of what a good franchise can do with a good trade at quarterback. The only thing I would say against that is Broncos historically, and I know they went under new ownership with the Walton family, I think it was. The Waltons, they own Walmart. I don't know exactly when they bought them. I want to say it's right around the Peyton Manning time, but the Broncos historically have always just been like one of my favorite teams since the 2000s. I've always loved Elway. I've always just loved that consistency the Broncos have. And I think that's just
random tangent. If you had to associate one player with the Denver Broncos, who would it be for you?
Probably just because I like them so much. Oh man, I have a lot. I kind of was a Broncos fan growing up. Terrell Davis, maybe Jake Plummer, John Elway.
That was gonna be the thing. I have this vivid memory of just sitting on my grandparents' couch with my grandfather watching CBS, Mile High Stadium, either against the Patriots or the Steelers. It felt like every year. Jake the Snake was in the playoffs, just slinging that thing for the Broncos. That's the player I associate with them.
Rod Smith, fucking Brandon Lloyd.
That's a great shout right there, buddy. Yeah, Rod Smith. Hell yeah.
Yeah, Rod Smith, Brandon Lloyd, Benjamin Watson. People remember him on the Patriots. I was a Benjamin Watson on the Broncos guy. Man, I like the Broncos, but yeah, that's just a well-run organization. Respect to them. Props to them for doing the Sean Payton thing. I thought Sean Payton was over the hill when they got him, so dead wrong on that part. Good for them. And I think Vance Joseph is their defensive coordinator, right? So God just shows you what a staff can do to a football team. And Vance
Let me
Joseph over there
see if I
putting
can
this random ass defense together in their top 5.
Let me see if I can dispel something real quick for the Bears fans in the chat. Shout out to everyone I'm seeing: Cliff, Plank, Antmus,
Absolutely.
Ampharius, Prometheus. How's it going, guys? Thank you so much for watching. I needed to dispel something, and that was... Did I quote tweet it? Essentially, Vance Joseph's interest from the Bears is not artificial, but it's not confirmed. Vance Joseph, he was put on a graphic by Fox Sports as being a head coaching candidate as far as there being a formal request for an interview. That is false. That is not the case. The tweet that I'm referring to is saying that there's interest, but it's nothing concrete at this moment. Hey, King Buka, Champ Bailey, that's a great shout as well.
That's a good one. Oh, and then Paul, I mean, just from the rafters, giving us a Demaryius Thomas out there. Rest in peace, Demaryius.
Yeah, he's a really good player too.
Yeah, that sucks. Brian Greasy from Ampharius. That was a good one. I remember Brian Greasy was a bear to me.
Yeah, there's one more team, though. It wasn't the Broncos. He's like a Josh McCown situation where he just played for everyone.
Buccaneers, I think.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, Buccaneers, yep.
Yeah, so. And then Chargers, man. God bless Jim Harbaugh and how good that team's going to be moving forward, because the thing I respect about the Chargers and what they're doing is it's built so well from the ground up, inside out, that the things that they need to add to that team are so obvious, and it's just draft picks. And it's a team that from the core is good, and free agency moves and draft picks can actually make them obviously better, like overnight, to the point where I would trust it. So I don't know what's going to dethrone the Chiefs. Maybe Patrick Mahomes retiring. But I do see the Chiefs kind of on a downward turn. And this year was, I think, a little bit of a hint towards that. So good for the Chiefs. I respect greatness. Me and Paul will always be consistent on the fact that we said fuck the Patriots in the way that, fuck them because they always just beat everybody, but respect them, because if you want to beat the best, be the best. I respect greatness, and right now the Chiefs are that greatness. I don't like them, but whenever I watch them, I can't just sit there and root against them. So
Chiefs are the definition of die a hero or live long enough to be the villain. They dethroned the Patriots and they became the Patriots. Shout out to them. And I agree with you. It feels like the Chiefs are in a downward swing, but we're talking about a 15-2 football team, man. And they could have been 16-1 if they didn't make the very, very smart choice of letting their division rival in, because in my opinion, my humble opinion, the Broncos are a much worse team than the Bengals currently. Bengals are on such a hot streak, even with that terrible defense. I think that the Bengals are much more likely to win a 50-49 playoff game than the Broncos would be to try and sneak out a 21-20 win, if that makes sense.
It does, and I bet you the Bills were definitely shitting themselves a little bit with that Bengals matchup looming, and we're probably
absolutely. Oh my God, we got robbed of that, didn't we? Wow, that would have been fantastic. Oh my God.
It was the only reason I was watching that Broncos game on my phone, looking at it, just being like, please just
I think I skipped a beat, and it was 14-0 in the blink of an eye, and I didn't watch a second afterwards. I was just like, you know what? This game is over.
Yeah, it was 38-0 real quick. But, man, that would have been what the Bengals, the way the matchups would have worked out, and like you said, we got robbed of it. The Bengals would have lined up with Buffalo, and then if they beat Buffalo, they'd go to Kansas City.
Yeah, just a casual stroll in the park for Joe Burrow, right? If that would have happened, man,
God,
we're talking about the best quarterback in the NFL, but I digress there.
Yeah, for sure. Starting with the NFC, kind of moving through. If you want to get kick-started on the NFC East, the NFC East. Philly at 14-3, Washington at 12-5, Dallas at 7-10. That feels high when you think back on what Dallas did this year, because
it's good for Bears fans, because I don't think they're much better than the Bears currently, but they are a lot higher in the draft order, so that's fine by me.
Yeah, one more breaking news for anybody who wasn't watching yet. I don't know if you broke that at the beginning, but the Bears were officially denied their interview with Mike McCarthy. Oh no, how are we going to make it? Please, God, please tell me that's not true. You get it. And then, but the Cowboys are probably going to end up keeping Mike McCarthy. Jerry Jones is amazingly senile right now, and God bless him for it. And then the New York Giants at 3-14. So if you want to break down that little bit of NFC East for us, Carl, how did it work out? How did it shake out compared to what you expected?
I'll have to find another piece of data from Football Insights here, but we're seeing the dominance of A.J. Brown in this NFL. He's elevating the play of his, in my opinion, not so good quarterback, but you pair that with the best running back in the NFL behind the best, arguably the best offensive line. Stats will tell you that the Detroit Lions don't have a good offensive line. Thanks, PFF, but it's right there, right? Eagles, Lions, definitely the best offensive lines in the NFL, but I think that Saquon Barkley is the best running back in the NFC, in the NFL, and they are as scary, in my opinion, as their record is. Shout out to Caleb Williams for relegating the Packers to Fentanyl Philly. Good luck with that, Jordan Love, if you're even going to play. The big surprise, I don't want to slander the Bearski side, but the Redskins, come the fuck on. Your quarterback's that good. Same breath, I think that PFF is claiming that their offensive line isn't even that good. I think that I saw Jaden Daniels historically has the most scrambles when pressured in NFL history already. I did expect more from the Cowboys. 7-10 feels like a letdown, but I know that they dealt with some injuries. I think that CeeDee Lamb, fantastic wide receiver. A lot of people will shit on Dak Prescott. I think he's just fine, but they were never able to find the running game. I'm sure their offensive line had some injuries as well. And their defense, without the guy who's now the head coach with the Commanders, they've regressed heavily, man. They've got to figure that out fast. Giants, no surprise. They chose to not only let your best player walk, but go to the team in your division. Daniel Jones, we'll side with him. No, just kidding, we're going to have you play reps at safety. No, just kidding, we're going to cut you. Daniel Jones, by the way, was signed to the active roster for the Minnesota Vikings today. I don't know, man. This division, the rankings feels perfect aside from the Commanders and the Cowboys flipping. I think that Jaden Daniels, before anything, I thought he'd be okay, but I didn't. I honestly genuinely thought that the Commanders would be a 7-10 team and that the Cowboys would be a 12-5 team. So the fact that it kind of flip-flopped and what you're getting out of that division going to the playoffs worked out perfectly. It's just the names are a bit different, I guess.
Yeah, and I think you and I are waiting for the bubble to burst on Jaden Daniels, and I think we might end up just being wrong on that one. We might have to.
Hey, I'm as optimistic as can possibly get, right? I watched the scum of Ohio State, C.J. Stroud, his bubble burst, right? That little Jaden's coming, man. You talk about players getting injured. One good tackle. Give me one good tackle, and we're talking about... I'm not going to say that. We're good. We'll move on.
I love where you draw the line. It's fantastic. But
I was going to say RG3, but I don't want him to get hurt, okay? I'm just saying one good tackle, and we're right back down to earth, man. He's not the MVP. Fuck off with that. Little Jaden is not the MVP.
I agree. I think the one thing he does have going for him is like the Commanders are probably under talented right now, and he's a good end of game quarterback. They're getting either lucky or not. But I think in terms of a team of variance, we can get into this later into the offseason and predictions for next year. They're such a high variance team to me that if they were 12-5 again next year, or 13-4, I guess I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be a little bit surprised if they maintain this level of success, but I think they're a very awesome little Cinderella story, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were 6-11 next year as well.
It's so easy. I hated the second after they completed the Hail Mary. I just dropped my phone, dropped everything, and I kind of just stood there like, well, what the fuck ever, it's just one game. Then I hear Tony Romo talk about Team of Destiny, and I got so red in the face, I feel like I was almost blacked out. But same thing, I agree with you. The Commanders are under-talented and overperforming. If they have the same record next year, though, I think that might frustrate me. I do have to shout out the one Ohio State player who I think I give their flowers is Terry McLaurin. He's a fucking fantastic football player, great wide receiver, and I'm so happy that he has a competent quarterback at this point to allow him to really show himself as a top-flight wide receiver, because that's what he is.
Yeah. Dallas, same as you, though. I'm not surprised. I think they're just I put them not even in the category of the Bears. I put them in the category of the Saints. I don't necessarily think that they're as bad as the Saints, but I think they're in this weird purgatory that they're going to just be stuck in until Jerry Jones decides to die or blow up the team or whatever, because with the way that they're constructed, I just feel bad for them because I feel like it's 7-10 on the horizon or 8-8 for the next like 5 to 10 years with the way that they've done their team with CD and Micah Parsons and Dak Prescott. I can't tell if they just have the best scouting department of all time where they get these players that they have to pay the most at their position always, but it almost backfires on them. And I just don't feel bad for Dallas, but it is what it is. I kind of just don't care about Dallas. I also just hate their marketing and being the face of football when they just are fucking irrelevant to any actual football fan.
The Americas team never bothered me, and I have a really close friend who is a Cowboys fan, so I'm a bit more tolerant to them, but it is really stupid.
Yeah. And then Fenville Philly was a pleasant surprise to me. I don't hate Philly.
Props to you for running with that, man. I'll give you a little rundown. I started watching football in 2005. One of my original core memories of sports of the Bears was against the Panthers when Desmond Clark caught a touchdown pass back against the wall, and he's kind of getting his shoulders massaged like he's a boxer or something like that. They lost, and I didn't want the Patriots to win another Super Bowl, so I actively rooted for Philadelphia. I really like them. I've got a fucking backpack right here with Magic the Gathering cards in it that has a Philadelphia Eagles logo on it. I genuinely like them. They were really good in Madden. I started playing Madden, all that good stuff, right? But it took a turn for the worse when you've got these CTE clients like LaShawn McCoy coming out and just bashing guys. Then the Alshon Jeffrey situation, oh my God. Traded to, or I don't know if he wasn't traded, right? He just left as a free agent to go to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He just totally shit on the Bears, and then he won a Super Bowl, right? And he was a total asshole. I just fucking hate Philadelphia, and their fans are assholes.
I agree there. I mean, we can draw the line between, I think, the team and the fan base a little bit, though. Fun fact, you asked me, who do you associate with the Broncos? Who do you associate with the Eagles?
Donovan McNabb.
Ooh, I'm a Brian Westbrook guy.
Fuck, that's a great answer. I love that kid as well. And a lot of people will say, who's that? Because LaShawn McCoy stole his thunder. But Brian Westbrook, fantastic player. Pretty sure he had a couple punt returns for touchdowns in his career as well. Just a great player.
I think the very first time I ever seen a guy take a knee at the 1 yard line to win a game, that was the coolest fucking thing I ever seen.
Yeah.
Love Brian Westbrook.
Brian Dawkins, oh my God. King Buka World's knocking him out of the park today.
Yeah, that's a fucking beast one right there. How about a Nnamdi Asomugha for you with that?
That's a Raider. That's always a Raider.
I know. That was an in-jest comment. But pleasant surprise for Philly, only because, and I'm going to say this because I never thought I'd see the day where like doing what they did would lead to actually working. Where Nick Sirianni was more in charge, and they just have like a crackhead head coach. That they were like, he's not bad, but we just need to like kind of put like a Hannibal Lecter muffle on him and it'll be fine. And it worked. And I never in a million years thought it would work. So respect to Philly for kind of just knowing what the fuck they're doing. Because Kellen Moore went from Dallas, yet again, another like interdivision offensive defensive coordinator type of thing going on. And props to them, man. They just knew how to fix that. Do that subtle tweak to take a really good team and make it better while you see Jalen Hurts getting worse. So like props. That's why I just kind of say like, that's an organizational success. I almost want to root for them in the playoffs just because fuck it. Like they have a lot of players I like.
I don't want the NFC North to win a single game, man. So if that means the Eagles have to beat the Packers, then beat the Lions or the Vikings and then the Lions. I'm unfortunately all for that, and hopefully they wouldn't be able to win the Super Bowl. But as far as like an organizational success, you're talking about two of the, not the best, right? I don't think that the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, is the best. But Vic Fangio could be the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. Agreed. We saw, of course, when he was snubbed of the Coach of the Year in 2018 for the Bears. And now he, in one draft, I don't know how much he would have banged the drum for Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. They turned their secondary around so quickly. They're finding guys off the streets like, Zach Bond, the linebacker. Yep. And they got lucky with the murderer, Jalen Carter. He plays well when he decides to with his effort issues, but he's a fine player.
Yeah. It's just it's a more of a respect, tip the cap kind of team.
Absolutely.
Real quick, before we get into the NFC North, I just wanted to do some comments because they're really good ones in here. Thank you, King Buka World, for understanding the absolute sarcasm about Mike McCarthy, and the lack of interviews.
I hope so. I don't see a /S in there, but
no, he got it. He totally got it. And then King Buka World, I wanted to give him this one because Carl is maybe PFF's number one hater. And his hatred for it and showing me the statistics that they kind of give out sometimes make me hate it more and more. I never really had I was
I've got
indifferent, but
I've
I'm
got this
starting
right
to
in
hate
front
them
of
more.
me. Throw this up on the screen while you're parsing through the
Yeah.
chats here. Let me open these images
So
of new
for King Buka
talents.
World, addressing the fact that the Bears O line was ranked 12th, anybody with a fucking set of eyeballs could tell you that they were not the 12th
Well,
best
let me walk
offensive
you
line.
through this, Dave. So it's a bit skewed, okay? This is per PFF, again, courtesy of Football Insights. Thank you very much, buddy. The bottom line, the 2024 spending in millions, okay? First thing that you'll see, okay, the only other team that's cheaper than the Bears are the Seahawks, right? Oh, the McCaskies, you suck, you're so cheap. No, motherfucker, you've got 3 starters on rookie contracts. Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Darnell Wright. They are on their rookie contracts. Of course, you're going to be cheaper than a lot of teams. But then the grades, the higher the better. As far as pass blocking, the Bears are ranked evenly with the Chargers, Ravens, and Eagles. PFF is telling me that the only teams that are clear cut better at pass blocking than the Chicago Bears are the Bills, Cardinals, Packers, Buccaneers, and Broncos. Get the fuck out of here.
If it's like a chart that's per dollar, then maybe, but yeah. Otherwise, fuck off.
It's X and Y access, so it's kind of saying they're indifferent of each other, but it kind of gives you a good cross reference. And I'll throw the run blocking up. The run blocking is more in line with what you'd think, but
Yeah.
still garbage.
Yeah, and then there was one more comment in here that I did want to address, but I can't find it now, so I guess we're gonna have to move on. But yep, and then you have the other chart for run blocking while I look for the other comments. So there we go.
Yeah, so as far as the money spent, nothing changed, right? They're left and right the exact same position, or at least they should be. But as far as their grades, they say that the Bears' run blocking is more average, which I would say that they're below average. But they're on par, again, with teams like the Buccaneers, the Bills, and the Vikings. There's a lot more teams that are clear-cut better. But I don't know. I guess this is a little bit more what I'd expect, right? Because with these charts, general rule of thumb, top right good, bottom left bad. Eagles, Lions, Colts. That makes perfect sense. The Chiefs, they've got a fantastic interior, so they'd be better at run blocking. Their tackles are terrible. I think that Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright would be upgrades at tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. But I'll digress on that point.
Yeah, I mean, I never really thought of certain players on the Bears that get shit on as bad, but yeah, we'll go into next year and see what happens. But if you want to, I think you started with the NFC East. I'll start with the NFC North with the Lions going first, Minnesota going second, Green Bay going third, Chicago being last. I think that division kind of shook out pretty much exactly how I expected it to, other than Minnesota and Green Bay flip-flopping and the Vikings being just significantly better. Every part of the Lions being 14-3 was not a shot, or I'm sorry, 15-2 or 14-3. 15-2, not really shocking. They're better than like the 13-4 that I probably would have thought, but not shocking that they're at the top. Green Bay, I'll move through that division ranking, but like exactly where I expected them to, right? 11-6, 10-7. We talked about it yesterday, and that's why I don't want to go too much on the NFC North. We talk about it every week. They're lucky as fuck. I think they're last year going into it, everybody gave them the excuse, well, they're still young, they're learning, and they're getting better, and they'll be better, and blah, blah, blah. I think this is exactly who the Packers are and will be for the next few years moving forward. They're going to be at 8-8, depending with some variance plays and some luck, and Jordan Love having a good game versus a bad game.
Let me throw out the names of the teams that the Packers will be playing in the 2025 season outside of the 6 games against the NFC North. So it starts out hot with the Eagles, Commanders, Ravens, Bengals, Yikes. Panthers. But their away opponents, Cowboys, Giants, Browns, Steelers, Broncos, Cardinals. We're looking at the Packers staring 10 wins in the face again next year, and it sucks because of situation. It sucks.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So that's an 8-8 team. If 2 of those games were a little bit harder, they'd be 6-10. And if they're easier, they're probably 10-6 or whatever. I still always struggle with getting used to 17 game.
I agree. Because you want it to be even, and now it's odd, and that's, they want it to be annoying with it being odd so that they can up it to 18 games. So NFL, greed is good.
Yeah, my brain has been wired for 22 years of football to 18 of them to watch as a 16-game season. Sorry, I'm going to get that shit wrong all the time, but people get what I mean. Bears, realistically, I had them potentially being middle of third in the division against the Vikings if the Vikings were bad. But logically, they were fourth. Paul and I were always there anyway. So it is what it is. I don't see much in that division changing other than the Packers being a high variance team. Depending on what Minnesota chooses to do at quarterback, that's probably going to be another just consistent thing going on there because whoever they replace with, I probably give Kevin O'Connell the benefit of the doubt. And then the only thing that I see is maybe the bubble bursting on Dan Campbell. I never was a huge Dan Campbell fan. I'm sorry. I don't believe in the rah-rah stuff. I just never have with coaches. He's not a schematics like statistician. He's a rah-rah guy with a great staff. If he can't hire his next staff to be as good as these guys, which are elite, maybe the rah-rah can get more good staff members in. But otherwise, they'll still probably be first and second for the next few years while Dan Campbell's there. But they're also a high variance team. I think the NFC North is good. I don't think they're as good as this year ended up being, and it's going to kind of come back down next year.
Yeah, bold statement. I will guarantee anything. I will wager Paul's social security number on the black market that we will not have a Week 18 game next year where two teams for the NFC North are playing each other directly. Winner gets the number 1 overall seed. I will wager that will not fucking happen in 2025. I do want to ask you, though, it's exceedingly likely that the Detroit Lions are going to lose both their offensive and defensive coordinators, and that can come with a lot of turbulence. The team might become a lot worse. They might be just as good. Talent-wise, they'd probably be just as good, right? But between the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers, what team do you feel is more likely, once the Lions, in my opinion, lose their coordinators, is more likely to go for it? And we might not know the answer until after this first round of the playoffs, but do you think that the Vikings or the Packers are more likely to go all in? I'm talking maybe if you say the Packers trade for Tyreek Hill. A bold statement, if you will. What do you think is more likely?
I don't know what all in means when you have quarterbacks that are stuck like Minnesota and Green Bay is, right? I think it's so funny because
Minnesota's situation is very up in the air. I don't think that Sam Darnold's under contract next year.
I don't know. I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot about what Minnesota could potentially do. If Sam Darnold is playing himself into a $50 million contract, which if a team is dumb enough to give it to him, go for it. Fuck it. That's a Raiders thing to do. That's a Giants thing to do. Whatever. If somebody's willing to do it, Sam Darnold will take the money, go for it. But if he's like competing for $30 million, $40 million contracts everywhere, and the Vikings have it on the books, then I don't see them not doing it. At the same time, if they do that, this quarterback class is so weak that JJ McCarthy would probably go first overall. So if a team has like the 10th pick and they want to give, or the 15th pick and they want to give him for JJ McCarthy, I could see that being possible too. When you say going all in, I think the team that would be most likely to do it would be Green Bay. I think they would be unsuccessful at doing it because I don't think that Tyreek Hill elevates Jordan Love's play necessarily, because I think Jordan Love is almost capped out. I think we've seen the best of Jordan Love and we've probably seen the bottom of Jordan Love. This is who he is. Whereas the Vikings, like you said, if there was somebody who to go all in, I don't even know where they would go all in at. Maybe defense. They already kind of went half all in with running back. They maybe would get, a good defender or a good pass rusher, like an elite, like Myles Garrett on the Vikings would terrify the shit out of me. And that's something I could see them do. But JJ McCarthy is almost a Sam Darnold light, right? I don't know, but I could see my gut would tell me Green Bay would do it, but they would be unsuccessful at it. Whereas Minnesota is less likely to do it. But I think if they did it, they'd be knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, I don't think that the Minnesota Vikings need another edge rusher, but a name like Max Crosby is going to start to get even more traction than he did during the trade deadline, because now you've got a new head coach. I don't know what's happening with their general manager, if it matters. Something that does scare me, you said that Jordan Love is tapped out. Jordan Love is tapped out because he is the king of getting lucky while throwing off of his back foot. If he was to do that in a scenario where he's throwing deep to Tyreek Hill, though, that luck is going to start to look more like skill. And that is a bit frightening to me.
I'm also not a huge Tyreek guy at this point in his career, so I don't think that adding a guy like that is still doing the same.
I wouldn't consider him a boogeyman in the sense like I had labeled Aaron Rodgers as, because he hasn't been doing it for as high of a level for that long. I think that Patrick Mahomes elevated him, all that good stuff. But he was quite literally voted the best player by his peers, coaches, and players in the NFL in 2024 or in 2023. So he's got a lot of talent. And again, his skill set is running down the field as quickly as he can and catching a deep ball. And Jordan Love throwing it from his back foot, luckily, that's going to increase his odds, and that's a bit scary.
Names like Myles Garrett and Max Crosby are also going to be way more relevant when Brian Flores goes somewhere else, because he's taking that defense with him, and whoever steps in is not going to be as creative as Brian Flores. So they're going to have to take a step back, rely more on talent as opposed to scheme. So I think that's kind of my thought process with why they would go all in as well, because they're going to have to rely more on the players rather than the coaching that is exceedingly excellent right now.
And let me just put a capstone on one of my comments from earlier. Sam Darnold signed a 1-year, $10 million contract with the Vikings last year. He is not under contract next year.
Oh, no, correct. It just all depends on how much he gets paid and where.
Definitely.
Like I told you, Carl, we went longer than I expected because of this stupid format, but we got 2 more divisions. If you want to start off the NFC South, and then we can kind of go into playoff predictions, which maybe should take a little bit less time. So
yeah, we can motor through that. We've been doing a good job. I'll motor through the South real quick. You've got the Bucks at 10-7, the Falcons at 8-9, who are a big blunder. I don't know what the Falcons' record was early on in the year. I wouldn't be surprised if they had been 6-2 or 5-2. But then you've got the Panthers and the Saints in 3rd and 4th in division at 5-12 each. Like I told you backstage, I think it was backstage. I'm very happy that Baker Mayfield is a playoff-bound quarterback. He was 3rd in the NFL this year with 4,500 yards on the dot. Bucky Irving, maybe the biggest surprise of the NFL, a player that was drafted after Torrey Taylor, by the way, which is a real rock to the face for Bears fans. I'm very happy with how that shook out. Not surprised at all that Kirk Cousins fell flat on his face. Really proves how good of a coach Kevin O'Connell was to kind of prop up Kirk Cousins to allow him to get another undeserved contract. And I know he's coming off the Achilles injury, but at this point they're going to cut bait. It's Michael Penix's team now. A lot of jokes are being silenced as well after how funny it was seeing him drafted as high as he was, but he's going to be the future. Props to them. I don't have any faith for that Falcons team moving forward. I think that the Panthers are on a very quick ascend. I've already made my comments regarding Bryce Young and his head coach. And the Saints, I think you said that they're kind of in purgatory, essentially. They'll always be. The cap is a myth, but they've mismanagement so fucking poorly that I can't see them doing anything well. I'm going to see if I can get up a graphic real quick, but go ahead, give your thoughts on the NFC South.
I'm with you on the same thing with Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're just such a fun team, and they're such a fun team to root for. So I'm looking forward to watching them. Baker is so fun, and he's so such a nice, like, positive story. Other than that, the Bucs are just kind of, I don't know, just always the 5th seed, right? So that's fine with me. I don't expect them to go far with it with Baker Mayfield, but maybe they will one of these days, kind of just surprise us. Atlanta is always going to have a little bit of a shitty spot in my heart, just because they are the rejects of the Bears that we have watched since 2016. It's basically all just the little brothers. So I do kind of always root for their downfall and their failure. Eddie Goldman and Darnell Mooney are on that team, for Christ's sake. And I also don't like Kirk Cousins, so fuck that guy. The Panthers, I hope you're right. I hope Dave Tepper just is a smart enough owner to fuck off and stop meddling and let Dave Canales do his thing. And if it's true and that is the case, I'm with you. They're probably on an uptick with the Saints. I think the Saints are probably going to be the worst team in the NFL for the next 2 years, probably with a top 2 or 3 pick just consistently. That is one of the worst, most mismanaged future plan team I've ever seen.
And throw my graphic up on the screen. That is how you avoid the cap totally fucking on you, is by having a run of draft picks that look like that. Holy shit. Holy shit.
Wow.
I don't know if there's an audio listener portion for this, but again, Marshawn Lattimore taken at 11th. A starting left tackle, Ryan Ramczyk, taken at 32. Marcus Williams, who could be the worst player on this list, he was a starting safety at the very least, at pick 42. Then you've got Kamara at 67, who was acquired from the Bears, I believe. That pick was originally belonged to the Bears. Alex Anelzone, fuck that guy, at pick 76. Then you've got the King, Trey Hendrickson, your sack leader at 103, and Al-Quadin Muhammad, who he was terrible for the Bears, but I was very happy when they signed him because he was super productive for the Colts. And you're getting a player like that at 196? Jesus. Bravo
Who the hell
to
is
you.
the GM?
Yeah, bravo to that guy.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Wait a
That's
second.
excellent.
Didn't Ryan Pace have some affiliation with this? No, Ryan Pace was the GM for the Bears at that point. But Ryan Pace was affiliated with the Saints before, I thought. He was on the Bears.
Well, I think it was the Saints, then he went to the Chiefs. So that would have not been much of an overlap.
No, Ryan Pace, not Poles.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan Pace. Oh, I think you're right. I believe you're right. Yep.
So
Ryan
there's
Pace.
a little bit of lineage there, but not quite, but whatever. I digress.
That is an absolutely insane draft. That's a fun fact that I have never seen, and seeing
Because
those players.
the snarky Lions fans, who again I don't want Detroit to win a playoff game, let alone a Super Bowl, snarky Detroit's fans will love to show you the first 4 picks of the last 3 years, right? You've got especially the year that they got Gibbs. I thought that was just a terrible draft, and they hit on every single pick. But then you've got other ones that include Penei Sewell, Kirby Joseph, all these guys. And is this a generational run of the best 4 picks in a row of all time? And then you throw that one out, and it's like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, and Farius confirming your thought of Ryan Pace being with the Saints at that point.
Thank you. And I never got to address him, Farius. He called me out for not because when we were talking about Brian Griese, I said there was another team. He was the starting quarterback for the University of Michigan that dethroned the ability for Tom Brady to get into the football field. So bravo to you and Farius. Keep calling my sorry ass out for shit like that I missed, because that's important.
I guess that's what your brain was kind of triggering to. Wrapping up that NFC West, man, probably the most interesting division in football this year, but somehow the most interesting in terms of records and crazy stuff going on at the top, but the least interesting in terms of teams that I actually care about somehow. So that's kind of how I approach the NFC West. The Rams at 10-7, first place. Seattle at 10-7. Arizona at 8-9, and San Fran at 6-11. Seattle Seahawks are the least interesting 10-7 team I've watched in football in maybe the last 5 years. Somehow they're 10-7, and I don't give a shit.
I want to give you your flowers on the Seahawks, though, because you labeled their head coach, the rookie head coach, as being a good one. I thought he'd be trash. But for him to do what he's done after they've moved on from a potential fringe Hall of Fame coach in Pete Carroll, who, by the way, is going to be interviewing for the Bears coach tomorrow or on Thursday as well. Shout out to that guy.
Yeah, Mike McDonald was you look at what had happened to the Ravens defense when he left. Shit, that guy was definitely a big piece of what the Ravens were doing. The Rams and Sean McVay. God damn it. How does Sean McVay keep doing it? How does he keep getting away with this? Aaron Paul meme, but yeah, good for the Rams. They have to drop off eventually. I mean, Matt Stafford can't just keep going unless they sign Sam Bradford or Matt Stafford. Jesus Christ. Matt Stafford, Sam Bradford were always such a mind fuck for me. If Matt Stafford retires and they get Sam Darnold in there, watch Sean McVay turn him into Matt Stafford, for fuck's sake. So that wouldn't be a shocking one for me.
Look out for an Anthony Richardson potential trade to the Rams for dirt cheap, and he'll just magically revive him as well, because Sean McVay could be the best coach in the NFL, could end up being the best head coach of all time. I'll leave that situation right where that's at. I thought that the Cardinals would be a lot better, man, but not really surprised with that anything outside of the injuries for 49ers.
I think this year just told me that 8-9 will forever be the Cardinals as long as Kyler Murray is the starting quarterback. I think that is.
And I wanted to really dog on you for that. Yeah, I wanted to dog on you for that. But the fact of the matter is, you've got such quality players around him. I don't know what the deal is with the offensive line, but Marvin Harrison Jr. is great. Is it Michael Floyd, their second wide receiver? Yeah. He's extremely capable. Greg Dortch would be Greg Dortch is what Bears fans labeled as Velus Jones Jr. That's a fantastic little piece right there. And Trey McBride's the second best tight end in the NFL. James Conner's the heart and soul of the running game, and the backup Trey Benson's no slouch, the rookie. You've got quality players on that Cardinals team, and you couldn't get it done when the 49ers had to deal with all those injuries. What the hell?
That's what I mean. It's what Kyler Murray is what the Bears wanted to do for Justin Fields, and this is what you would have gotten as well. It's just guys like this that just can't pull this shit together, or just, it's when you're so good at running, some games you're just going to be good at running, and some games you're going to be good at passing, and some games you're going to be good at running. And it's just kind of one of those things where I think this is just the maximum thing we've ever seen from Kyler Murray. We're never going to see any better. He might get better stats, but I don't think it's going to translate necessarily to wins. And then the Niners, fuck, man, I don't know what to say about the Niners because they should suck for the next 5 years, but they probably won't because Kyle Shanahan's a genius. And the same
Hey,
way
Mike
you want
Shanahan's
Sean
a genius
McVay-
too. He's the shadow general manager. You don't have to correct yourself. Both the Shanahan
agree.
boys are good,
That guy's scouted every goddamn good quarterback in the last 10 years. So,
including Purdy.
Yep, there you go. So there's your NFC West. I think we can happily move on. That's our kind of season review, unless you have a topic you want to throw in before we go into the playoffs.
No, I've got all my little tangents out, here and there. Thank you for dealing with me. Haha, that's okay. That's okay. God bless you.
Try to mute it in time.
That's okay. Let's move on to the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. Ready to go. So,
Well,
Carl, I don't know if you have your bracket ready, but you can kind of start breaking it down and you can get us started.
I don't have anything pretty to show everyone, so it's gonna suck. I just have the image that the NFL posted from Twitter.
That's all right.
So we can start with the AFC since we just capped off talking about the NFC. Unless you want to do NFC in reverse, I really don't care. But
Nope. No preference.
we faded the best matchup in the NFL. I'm sorry, in this playoff matchup. Wild card weekend. That is. First matchup. I don't know what time it is. I'd like to do it by chronological, but looking at this graphic at the very least, you've got the Denver Broncos going to the Buffalo Bills. I, again, think that this is definitely a situation where the Bills are primed and ready to go.
I am so sorry. I was trying to share this with you. I don't know if that's working properly the way I want it to, but
Looks good.
if that's that. All right, there we go. So we do have you said Buffalo primed and ready for Denver. I think Denver's sneaky good, but I think this is where it all kind of ends for them. They
Correct.
are going to get an absolute ass pounding by the Buffalo Bills, as they should. And so I'm ready
It'll
for that.
be like a 35 to 21, 24 game, but there's going to be some garbage points because Josh Allen won't be playing meaningful snaps in the fourth quarter. I think they're ready for a rinsing, the Broncos.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the reality check for the Broncos, which might be good or might be bad, but I don't know what the ceiling. We can talk about that in going into next year. But if this is what the Broncos are, I don't ever see them getting into situations like this where they beat teams like the Bills with Bo Nix of all people. But I could be surprised and they could just get more talented with like a super stellar defense with some all-star players. But I mean, let's see. I think this is at this point all bonus time for the Broncos. They probably should have missed the playoffs for the Bengals. Like we said, we got robbed of that one. God, if we were talking about Bengals, Bills right now, that'd be so much better. But good on the Broncos. This is all bonus time. Denver fans, enjoy your time in a playoff game on, I think it's Saturday. And don't be surprised.
I've got the time slots in front of me. So Broncos at Bills is going to be I like to do Central Time, fuck Eastern Time. Your noon game on Sunday.
Okay.
The first game, and fun fact for you, every single playoff game that the Houston Texans have played in the wild card round has, like clockwork, always been at 3:30 on a Saturday. So that's your 3:30 matchup against the Chargers. I, in my opinion, think that this is going to be another wash. I think that the Chargers, you know what? I feel like I'm going to keep leaning that way, and that's going to make me look really bad. This is going to be a good game. I don't think that the Chargers are as world beaters as I want them to be. I love their quarterback. I love their head coach. But I think that the Chargers can go in and defeat the Texans on the road.
I'll speak for you then. I think this is going to be a dog walking by the Chargers. I don't necessarily see how Houston pulls off an upset here. Anything that the Chargers are good at, Houston's not very good at. Anything that Houston is good at, the Chargers are better at and better at stopping. And at the end of the day, Jim Harbaugh, in my mind, is one of the best 5 coaches. He's been here before. A playoff game on a Saturday or on a Sunday or whatever it was. You said a Saturday at 3:30. That does not scare him. DeMeco Ryans is going to be in his second playoff game. I don't necessarily think he's a slouch, but I think, like you said, this is a closer game. I see this being like 24-13 Chargers. I don't know if you consider that a close game, but I think it's a 2-score game, and I think Houston's going to be reeling.
24-13, 24-17 sounds really plausible. Couple nuggets for Bears fans. You get to see the great Khalil Mack play football, which is always a good thing. I feel like he was actually voted as a Pro Bowler this year, I'm pretty sure. So hopefully we get to see that Khalil Mack come alive and well, and especially when it matters in the playoffs, fourth quarter, third down, all that good stuff. We get a couple Khalil Mack sacks. That would make me very happy. Do we want to move on to the next game?
Yeah, I'll start this one because I don't I think you're going to be in the dog walking category. Baltimore and
I know, and I
Pittsburgh.
don't want to keep saying that because there's like 4 matchups that I could think could legitimately be dog walkings, but I guess this is a divisional rivalry, right? Like this is the third game that
Yeah.
these guys are going to play each other.
And I'm only saying this because I'm going to be the devil's advocate a little bit on this one and kind of defend Pittsburgh here. They definitely, like we said, let a nice big wet fart out to end the season. Um, and the biggest issue I have with it as to why I agree with you it'll be a dog walking is because if they were rolling and George Pickens was not suffering from a mental breakdown in the beginning of the playoffs and Russell Wilson was kind of on a hot streak, I could see this being a much more competitive game. I think they're just catching them at the wrong time. Whatever you want to attribute that to, is it the Tomlin effect? Is it he can hide why his teams aren't as good at the middle of the season and the regular season? He's excellent at kind of just beating up on busters. Maybe that's the case. I do see Baltimore winning for sure, for sure. But I think if you go through the history of like AFC North matchups when it's like 3 games or something like that, it almost always ends up being a 1-score game, 3 to 7 points. And I wouldn't be shocked by a 20-13 Baltimore win. Also, because I think this is going to be a Lamar Jackson, Peyton Manning category type of game where you might see Lamar kind of struggle more than you're expecting him to just kind of just come out and ball out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, and I hate to kind of backtrack, but I wanted to mention regarding the Chargers. I believe that their starting left tackle was injured or out, and something happened to where Joe Alt had to go to left tackle and a player had to shift over to right tackle, and that player got hurt. The reason I bring that up and want to tie that into what's going on with the Ravens, Zay Flowers is hurt. Zay Flowers had his knee. He's considered day-to-day. I don't know what his exact status is, but these are things that you've got to look out for. He being Lamar Jackson, has finally a Pro Bowl wide receiver. I feel like the Ravens are a team that's always highly invested in their outside talents as far as first and second round picks into their wide receivers, or they go out and get players who used to have that label and did fail for the previous team. But Lamar Jackson legitimately has a strong supporting cast. Even on defense, you've got really high-name players like Roquan Smith, the Matabike guy, the defensive tackle. I really adore him. I wanted the Bears to get him in free agency, but we never got the chance for that. The Ravens are stacked. If they lose this game, it's the flip side. I think yesterday I talked about how Tomlin could be on the hot seat. If it's John Harbaugh, if he gets bounced one and done at home, oh my God, there's a coaching candidate for the Bears right there.
Yeah, I like agreeing with Ed Ferris. I think both of us are in the category of the Ravens should win this game by 20. I think weird stuff is happening. I think weird stuff happens in the AFC North. Weird things happen when they play each other 3 times. Any team plays each other 3 times, and neither coach is a bad coach. So maybe there's something weird that's going to happen. Also factoring in that, again, that part of giving the Pittsburgh the edge of the potential that they could keep it close. The negative side of the Baltimore Ravens, and I want to ask you this question as soon as we're done with this, if you have the time. I think it's a good question, but the Ravens are encroaching that territory of teams that make the playoffs every year, 13-3, and just somehow, some way can't figure out how to beat the same teams they beat in the regular season in the playoffs. And it's just kind of going to be a consistent problem. Harbaugh being on the hot seat, maybe not as extreme. Maybe it is, but weird things happen in these playoffs, especially to the Ravens. So I would like to see the Ravens be the team in the playoffs that they always are in the regular season. That's what I would prefer to see because I think it's going to make the playoffs better the week after and the week after that. But I wouldn't be shocked by a crazy Steelers upset, if that makes sense.
I see where you're coming from. I guess I'll cap that off with the Ravens could have the 3 best running backs on the field on Saturday at 7 p.m. Central. King Henry, I think it's Keaton Mitchell. I know the last name is definitely Mitchell. He's a really good running back. And then Lamar Jackson. There you go.
Yep. No, don't disagree. So going through, switching over to the NFC, Detroit's on their bye week. Kansas City's obviously on the bye week in the AFC. Going from the same way we did the other side, the matchup at the bottom, we got Minnesota and LA on looks like Monday night.
That's the Monday night game.
That's pretty sweet. And how do you feel about the Monday night Minnesota LA Rams matchup?
As much as I could see it going either way, and the more I think about this, even though Matt Stafford got his extra week of rest, that's the worst thing that he can play against is the Brian Flores defense. You've got Van Ginkel lining up over the center. You've got Jonathan Grenard playing out of his goddamn mind. You've got the former Chicago Bear himself, Jonathan Bullard, making an impact. I had Kyren Williams in fantasy, and he was a good running back. He got a lot of points for me. He helped me win a league. But I don't know if he's the impact running back that would make the Vikings scared to maybe crowd the box in the sense that they've got to stop the run, which that would help the Rams a lot because then they'd be able to get the ball down the field to their fantastic wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, and, in my opinion, the third best wide receiver in the NFL being Puka Nacua. But I just think that the Vikings are going to come out with a vengeance. They're pissed off that they lost. They look terrible against the Lions. And I had predicted a scoreline for that Vikings-Lions game of 43-42. I would have been close, but the damn bend don't break Aaron Glenn defense of the Lions at home, they stifled them. I think they had at least 3 stops in the red zone where they went for a touchdown on 4th down and didn't get anything. A lot of those points could be converted into touchdowns, in my opinion, against the Rams. So give me the Vikings here on Monday night.
Okay. I'm trying to find this, and I believe I'm having a memory of this, of the Rams playing the Vikings earlier this season.
Yeah, the Rams won.
The Rams did win, that is correct. And I don't remember what necessarily went wrong there for the Vikings, if anybody was injured or if that was the Justin Jefferson.
I think that they were just on a hot streak. I vividly remember that once they lost to the Rams, Paul had highlighted that the Vikings were 2 or 3 of the most 5 recent teams to start 5-0, 6-0, and miss the playoffs. Something like that. I thought that was just everything. I thought they were going to crumble. But it didn't happen, and that's kind of why I'm saying, I don't want to say the Rams got lucky. I love their head coach, and they are very talented. Let's give the flowers right here to the Rams' defensive line as well, right? I didn't think that Jared Verse would be as dominant as he was. I did mock him to the Bears in that draft in a trade-down situation, but him and his college running mate, Braden Fisk, paired with the conductor, Kobe Turner, that is a fucking fantastic defensive line, and kudos to them for finding a way to replace a little bit of the greatness that was Aaron Donald.
I fucking hate that you brought that up because that was a point I was trying to make and did a little bit of research. And Braden Fisk leading the league in rookie sacks because it wasn't that great of a rookie total.
Hold on. Braden Fisk, not Jared Verse?
Braden Fisk had 4.5 sacks. Jared Verse only had 4 sacks this year. I'm sorry, 4.5 for Jared Verse and about 5 for Braden Fisk. So holy together smokes. They are 1 and 2 at the rookie sack total for the season. But yeah, it's not as much. Jared Verse did not dominate statistically nearly as much as everybody does remember, which blew my mind as well. Saw you kind of had your mind blown by that one. But yeah, the 2 best rookie defensive players on the line are both in LA. So kudos to them, like you said.
Hey, and if you love that style, right? The star paired with the underrated player coming into the NFL next to each other, look out for the Chicago Bears in a trade back scenario to start by drafting Kenny Grant, and later in the draft, maybe late day 2 or early day 3, they'll pick up Josiah Stewart. I'll take that. From the University of Michigan, that is. I'm sorry.
Oh, I figured. I completely assumed.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So good on the Rams. I guess my only argument was going to be that I think Sean McVay, the same way I feel like every time he can kind of isolate his coaching tree and maybe know something that we don't. I also find it's going to end up being brilliant or it's going to be completely arrogant the way Sean McVay approached week 18, where he started Jimmy Garoppolo and sat the majority of his starters. I understand the logic behind it. I think the quote was that their bye week was like week 5 and that they genuinely needed a rest. But this could have easily been a matchup for Minnesota as 3-6 with Washington. And I probably would be picking LA over Washington in that type of matchup. So it's going to either end up being very, very clever because if the Rams beat the Vikings, I think that's just McVay showing that he's like, I don't care. I could beat either one of these guys. Or it could be very arrogant if the Vikings end up kind of taking them down. And a big mistake and maybe a little bit of a problem for Sean McVay in terms of like his legacy. He's overperforming already this year when he shouldn't be. So I say that and
Who's
just
he?
kind of like I'm sorry, who's that? Sean McVay?
You're saying Sean McVay's over? Oh, he's helping his team overperform.
Oh yeah, but
Understood and agreed. Sure.
yeah, but in terms of like a little bit of a dent to his legacy, that's kind of a cocky move in my mind if that ends up being biting him in the ass. God, I really want to take Minnesota here. I just kind of can't. So I'm gonna go LA.
You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong taking the home team. And the Minnesota Vikings lined up in victory formation against the Lions, and they lost their ass. And I'm sure they would have loved to be on a bye and have all their games at home, but that's just what the nature of the beast was in the NFC North this year, man.
Yeah, the Rams are a team that can beat Minnesota and also lose to the Bears. So I don't know what to say. So I'm
Which is
take
exactly
LA.
what happened, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to take LA here, and I'm going to trust in Sean McVay because I think you're turning me into a bigger McVay fan than you are.
I want to say hello to Isaac Schneider in the chat because I've never seen him before. Hello to you, sir. I don't like that
Isaac.
comment regarding the holding. But I wanted to bring up, and this is going to be I'm going to sound really stupid, and I really don't care. There's a play that I adore from the McVay system where you've got a fake handoff maybe to the left, and you've got either a tight end or a wide receiver like a DJ Moore that leaks across the formation to the other side, and that player is wide open, okay? The player in the NFL who is most likely to intercept that play and return it for 6 points is Andrew Van Ginkel. So the Vikings could have a strong matchup in that sense.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're going to love it.
From a technical, from a technical, non-technical standpoint, that's how I feel.
I get what you're saying. They match up well in that kind of like schematic way and also the physical.
Because I feel like Stafford completes that pass on that play at least 5 times a game. That's a good chunk of your plays, you know. I don't know what the percentage would be out of however many snaps, but like if you can take that away fully, that's good.
And also the way that Vikings play their line where they could line up 5 linebackers, blitz 2 of them, and drop back and, just surprise them, catch them off guard. I get what you're saying.
Let me hammer this point for the Vikings home as well because I've barely done any research on this, and I love the fact that I was able to identify this so quickly, right? Because for the Bears Country Productions channel, I would love to compile the snap percentages of the players on each side of the ball for each team in the prior game just to see what we could expect, right? The Minnesota Vikings played a game where they only had 3 dedicated defensive linemen play in a game. Only 3 of them. And those players, out of the 3, only one of them hit like 50% of the snap count, okay? So you're talking about winning a football game where you hardly play defensive linemen. That is fucking insane.
That's such an asshole thing by Brian Flores. Like, what a flex. What a dickhead.
Yeah, I call him an asshole with his note card in front of his face when he's trying to cover his face when he's calling his plays, right? Like, he's only got 3 choices from that fucking note card.
Yeah.
Blitz, cover 0, or man coverage, whatever you want to say, man.
Drop 8, yeah.
Or engage 8.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's playing Madden.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, so we're gonna go Minnesota, LA. So before that, I think we were all 3 in agreement. So at least something here to kind of differentiate us. Tampa Bay, Washington, NBC game. That's gonna be the Sunday nighter. So clearly, America wants to watch Jaden Daniels. Oh boy. So how you feel about that one?
This is a game where it's obviously not going to be a blowout. I could see this being a high-scoring game. I could also see this being a testy, like 17-14 game-winning field goal, some shenanigans there. It's going to be played in Tampa Bay, right? Hopefully it's not raining and we get a quality game. My heart tells me that the Buccaneers will win because I love Baker Mayfield. Just seeing Mike Evans tie Jerry Rice with that. They had already won the game, right? They stopped them on 4th down, and the sensible thing would be to kneel out the game and go to the playoffs. But they got their man $3 million and tied NFL history. Mike Evans and Jerry Rice are in the exact same conversation right now. That warms my heart, man. If the Buccaneers had Chris Godwin, I think that this is a blowout. I still think that the Buccaneers win, but I would not be surprised if the Redskins are able to pull it off, man.
We have exactly the same mentality, and I might give you a fun fact that might sway you a little bit. There is one quarterback in the NFL that averages 3 catches and 45 yards against Mike Evans. And that is,
I know that Marshawn Lattimore is his kryptonite. He always has been
yeah.
for those New Orleans Saints.
I think that's when I heard that fun fact, I was like, damn, that might swing the game because if you can shut down Mike Evans with no Chris Godwin and the rest, I love Baker Mayfield too, but I think that defense is playing soundly. Dan Quinn is like a matchup monster. And so,
Baker Mayfield squeezing the lemon with Sterling Shepard, his former
yeah,
University of Oklahoma teammate, and
Jalen McMillan.
McMillan, who was taken last of the three Husky wide receivers. I'm not going to ever say he's better than Roma Dunze, but he's giving you the most production. He's a good player. So I really wouldn't be surprised either way. Just want to address Cliff real quick. We are not competing with the Bears Country podcast. We are not competing with Dan, Scance Leone. He chose to compete with us. He said like 8 o'clock. I guess when he said 8 o'clock, he was going with his flyover state bias of Eastern time zone. Fuck you, Dan, but I'm glad that you're getting some off your chest by yourself. You should do that more, Dan. I appreciate you.
I don't know why he would be hating on Josh McCown so much, but anyway.
No. Dan Shorty Scantini, aka Dan, wants the Bears to hire Josh McCown as their head coach. And did you see
That's
that Josh
a
McCown?
conversation for another day, I guess.
Yeah, and Josh McCown got a head coaching interview request today, by the way, from the Jets.
And so did Matt Nagy, so I'm not going to really take that kind of request.
Hey, if Matt Nagy's the head coach of the New Orleans Saints next year, I won't bat one fucking eye.
Me neither, and it'd be quite funny. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Washington. I have to if we're talking official predictions, my heart, like you said, I want Tampa Bay to go as far as possible because it's just pure entertainment
Vibes.
Yeah, but Washington is probably going to win 21-20.
If
And
the Redskins
it's not
if the
gonna surprise me.
Redskins win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it will be because Scary Terry is going to have the best performance of wide receiver in this wild card round.
I almost disagree. I think it's going to be just Brian Robinson just having like 125-yard rushing, Jaden Daniels having one passing, one rushing. It's going to be the typical Washington win.
On paper, well, maybe who's that guy from the Chargers, the bald guy? Can't think of his name. Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler, yeah.
He could go off. I wouldn't be surprised. But on paper, Vita Vea and it's Levante David. They just got Shaq Barrett out of retirement. Those guys, when it matter, they should be able to stop the run at home, man.
All right. Either way, I got to pick somebody, and I'm going to pick Washington just because.
I don't fault you.
All this chalk is kind of making me sick. And if anything, I see any side of football, AFC or NFC division wise, kind of going anti-chalk, it's the NFC. Everybody kind of sucks and everybody's kind of good. With the AFC, you've got your top heavy, big dogs. And the NFC is kind of where I'm going to go with, the reverse of chalk, which so far I have. But I think that's going to change with our next one. You get to start off with Green Bay versus Fentanyl Philly. How do you feel? I think we're going to be in big agreement here.
Hold on. How fast can I find this? Google, tell me. Green Bay, Dallas Cowboys. That's my score prediction. I'm going to predict the score will be... I'll take away the 16 points of garbage points here as well, right? Fentanyl Philly, 48. Lowly Green Bay Packers, that is 16. So yeah, I've got 48-16. Fentanyl Philly flexing on little Jordan Love.
I won't go as far with 48, but about 38-20. I don't even know how Green Bay stands a chance. If they do, I will be aggressively upset. I will be actually mad. I am rooting for Philadelphia so hard, not because they're a good seed and not what we talked about earlier, but truly, and I know you don't like this, fuck the Packers. I hope two players just get absolutely knocked the fuck out. I hope Jalen Carter rips a kneecap.
Dan Campbell would like that. My exact thought process with the injuries too is, from a human standpoint, never want to see it, right? I would hate for that to happen to me. Why would I want that to happen to someone else? But then they've got the excuse. Oh, we didn't have our starting quarterback. He didn't play. That's why we lost. Fuck you. I want you to be at full strength, and I want you to get hit in the face with a baseball bat like The Walking Dead with, I believe it was Glenn, who had his brains just fucking splattered everywhere. That's what I want to happen to the Packers metaphorically. Fuck them.
Oh, yeah. All right. So we're in lockstep there. So finalizing our last few questions for the playoffs moving forward. I had a question I'd like to ask you because
Go for it.
kind of goes back into what we've been talking about so far. Obviously, the big winner for any playoff series is going to be the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl Ultimate Champion. And there's, your nice stories where if Washington has a first round win, that'd be great and blah, 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 but they're probably not a real contender. On the flip side, looking through the teams in this playoff, coach, player, team, franchise, who has the most to lose and why?
In the playoffs?
Yeah. Just kind of like looking through this wild card round, you can eliminate Detroit and you can eliminate Kansas City. But who, as a team, maybe a coach, maybe a player, because I have like 2 or 3 that jump to my mind. Maybe I should have given you a little bit more time to think.
I'll try and formulate an answer for you for the wild card round, but if you're talking about a team that has the most to lose from not winning the Super Bowl this year, that's the Detroit Lions. Everything has aligned, right? Ben Johnson was the best, maybe most sought after head coaching candidate last year. He returned. You're going to lose both of these guys after this year. You never know what's going to happen as far as injuries. David Montgomery is starting to show a little bit of wear and tear. He's neglecting an injury to rehab. He's going to be back, by the way. Some more breaking news for you guys. Chock full of it today. He could get injured next year. Jahmyr Gibbs, if he gets injured, he loses his speed. That team could go down into the dumps. The Lions have to win the Super Bowl this year, or they are not ever going to win it with this regime, in my opinion. That said, for your wild card round, what team has the most to gain? Maybe the Broncos? They'd be beating the number 2 seed?
Yeah, I mean, all those stories are obvious, and I think it's less interesting to say who has what to gain because any team that wins this round is going to gain something, right? Like, even if, like we said, even if the chalk happens, Philly can kind of shut people up and say, well, we can't prove that we're a regular season team. You thought Jalen Hurts. These are all easier plot lines. I think the reason I kind of asked the negative one is because they're interesting. They're a little bit more. So my initial thoughts, based on kind of what we've talked about this week, on your side, Detroit, I have one on the AFC side, and that's Baltimore. If Baltimore gets bounced in the first round of the playoffs, that is a team that looks like shit. It'll have a totally different perspective going into next season. No matter how good they are, no matter what upgrades they make, everybody's going to start talking about Baltimore as, well, they're going to make the playoffs, but they're going to get bounced in the first round, and that's going to be their new thing.
I never would think that way, though, because I feel like the Ravens were better last year, and they're regressed in a bit, specifically with their defense, right? But it feels like that gives them room for improvement almost. Like their defense could just get one added piece. Hopefully you'll be able to retain everyone. Maybe they get better at that point. They added Derrick Henry, who had a historic season, essentially. He probably will never reach that again, but he's going to be close. He could definitely get, 1,500 yards on however many touchdowns next year. I think that the Ravens will be super competitive next year, even if, God forbid, for Ravens fans, they move on from their head coach.
I guess I get what you're saying, but to your point, you were saying if they lose, we're talking about a head coach getting fired. One of the best head coaches in the league, top 5, in my opinion. So that is something that's like a super high stakes team that would lose. And maybe they could improve by adding and keeping, but you're not going to get an MVP year from Lamar Jackson 3 years in a row and then expect to still keep going. So
he'll always be around. He'll always be around it, right? I don't know why he's considered to be the MVP though, because he's not the leader in total. He probably should be the leader in total yards, but is he anywhere near with touchdowns?
Yeah, he has almost the same amount, I think, as Josh Allen, and ratio-wise, it's better.
Like at the top, like he scored the most touchdowns in the NFL.
I got to double check that for you, but the only reason I would say that that's almost not as important is because Derrick Henry was a total vulture for him statistically in terms of him doing QB sneaks.
I really need to get into the weeds of that because it's an argument that I think I need to strengthen for the MVP. What I was going to say is I feel like the ability to have Lamar Jackson run off of the run-pass option with Derrick Henry has made Lamar Jackson more potent.
So this is how
not taking away his stats.
Before we even keep talking about it, Joe Burrow led the league with 4,900 yards, 43 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Lamar Jackson had 4,200 passing yards, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So he was second in the league, 41, tied with Baker with 41, whereas Josh Allen had 28 total and 6 picks, and he's the favorite for MVP. he also had 900 yards rushing, which in total, I believe there was a statistic. It was like the only player in NFL history to have 4,000 and almost 1,000, like that Madden stat of 4,000 and 1,000. He's the closest that's ever come to it. So he is an MVP. I mean, he is like on the best team, one of the best teams with the best stats. I don't think he can maintain it. I just don't see any player being this good this long for 5 more years. If you're wasting MVP years of Lamar Jackson, whether or not let's say he gets 20% worse and he's at 30-10, right? That's still a damn good quarterback. But we're talking about wasting MVP years with a 30-year-old Derrick Henry, and I don't know where they improve. Like you said, maybe they improve on defense, I suppose. But if the defense is what ruins it for them in the playoffs, you have a point. That's where I'll agree with you. Maybe the defense is what loses it, and they lose a shootout 38-41. But that's usually not why Baltimore fails, man. Baltimore fails in the playoffs because all that amazing stuff they do in the regular season on offense just never
able
shows
to be
up.
stifled because they're not playing against the Browns and the Bengals. I hear that point loud and clear.
Yeah.
If the Baltimore Ravens defense loses a playoff game against the Steelers, like Lamar has a good game, Derrick Henry has a good game, but they find a way to lose because their defense is bad, that's going to look so shitty for those Ravens.
That's why I said they have, like you said, the Lions have a lot to lose. The Ravens have a fuck ton to lose, man. No version of them.
I would be more confident with the Ravens. All it takes is for Travis Kelce to say, hey, I'm hanging it up. I'm spending more time with my superstar girlfriend. There is the unspeakable possibility of Patrick Mahomes winning the Super Bowl and riding off into the sunset. It is a possibility. It's maybe as likely as the Bears trading for McVay or O'Connell at this point, but it is possible. If that clears the deck, the Ravens are right back at it. They're right there at the tippy top of being a Super Bowl contender, if not already.
I agree with you. So it's kind of we are very much talking out of both sides of our mouth because we're talking about if they lose, it's not a big deal because the next 3 years could be wide open. But if they lose, they could also lose their head coach. So it is a little bit of talking out of both sides. But that's why I get your point where Detroit has a lot to lose. I think the Ravens are in the top 3 categories, though, of like if they lose, man, that's going to look so bad. Maybe it doesn't lose them much in terms of team structure, team foundation. No one's getting fired or anything. But I would feel bad. I'd feel bad for Baltimore fans if I see another fucking wet fart playoff game from Lamar when he's putting out stats like this during the regular season. I would.
And by the way,
I wouldn't like to see it.
I'm pretty sure that the MVP is a regular season award. I feel like it is going to be determined soon if it isn't already determined. It just isn't announced until NFL Honors, which I believe is the night before the Super Bowl. If you want to humor me, throw up Ferris's comment on the screen. He says that the Chargers have the most to gain. Jim wins the championship and then goes to the Super Bowl. That would be insane. Absolutely go blue.
All right, that's enough of that.
But what I was going to say is that if the Chargers win the Super Bowl, Mahomes and Kelce are not retiring. They're going to want to come back and dethrone their divisional rivals who are the Super Bowl champions at that point. And in that breath, I almost don't want the Chargers to win the Super Bowl. Like I want the Chiefs to fuck off.
God bless you, Michigan people. They're so 2 years away. It's not even funny. They're great. I love their little story, but
the Chargers?
The Chargers are a year and a draft or 2 away. Maybe a year if they're good, but they'll be competing for a Super Bowl in 2. But they're going to be a better seed next year.
I saw a mock draft, and I don't know if you're big into the mocks and all that good stuff. It's just on my mind right now, okay? I don't know what the Chargers are at or what they'll end up being, and that obviously is determined by their playoff success or lack thereof. But I saw a mock draft where Teratoa McMillan. I'm sorry, no. Luther Burden fell to the Chargers. That would make me blow my head off if I'm a fan of anyone in that division, because I think that Luther Burden's going to be the best receiver out of this draft. And to pair him with a top 5, potentially a top 3 quarterback with Justin Herbert, look the fuck out.
Also, watch out once the Chargers actually get a talented running back.
I made a soft bet with Adam Mason, okay? I said that if Ashton Jeanty falls all the way to the Chargers with that head coach, Ashton Jeanty as a rookie is getting 2,000 all-purpose yards. Bet everything on it.
I don't think that's crazy at all. But I just don't. I think him landing at the Chargers is less likely than him getting 2,000 yards on the Chargers.
I hear you, man.
So
I hear you, man.
I did have one more for you if you'd
Go
like
for
to
it.
comment on this one,
Yes,
because
please.
this is going to get you going. I think the third person in my list who has the most to lose this year is Mike Tomlin himself all alone. If we're talking about Pittsburgh failing, Mike Tomlin has a lot to fucking lose here.
God, this is such a juicy matchup. And I'm going to watch every minute of these playoffs, but now you're getting me excited for this Ravens-Steelers game, which before our conversation I thought would be a whitewash. You're absolutely right, man. Are you saying that Tomlin could be fired and almost kind of devalued in the NFL? Is that what you're suggesting?
He's doing it to himself at this point by
Yes.
losing 10 of, I think the stat I saw, the fun one was 10 of 11 of his last playoff games. And I believe he has not exited the first round since that first time.
I'm going to do my homework, okay? I'm going to put this out so that I can watch it later and jot it down as I've said it to myself. Hello, future Carl. I want to know what Mike Tomlin's record is with the Steelers past week 13, because the NFL ended at week 17 traditionally, so that'd be 4 games and now 5 games and whatever's happening in the playoff. I would adore to know what his record is right now in the NFL with the Steelers past week 13. And I'm going to do that research and give it to you guys next week.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a great stat. And here's part of the reason why I think he has a lot to lose is I think Pittsburgh itself has so much pride as a organization that I think any more of this from Mike Tomlin is almost borderline not going to be tolerated. And whether or not people agree, I don't necessarily know if Pittsburgh has gone all out to support Mike Tomlin. I kind of when you go back and you look at the way that this team has been constructed and then deconstructed and then reconstructed, I think the guy is still a fucking top 5 coach. And with some stability and actual investment, I think Pittsburgh would be better off. Flip side of that, my deep dark fantasy is the Bears do not sign anyone in this coaching cycle that's their second or third choice. They leave Thomas Brown in for a year to be a lame duck with Ryan Poles, because Ryan Poles is a lame duck. We'll move on to that. And Mike Tomlin comes to the Bears. So there's my deep dark fantasy.
I would, even if I come back and have discovered that Tomlin's record in that scenario I described is like double negative, I would still love for Mike Tomlin to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Absolutely. It would be stupid to say anything otherwise. The Lions getting the first overall seed has allowed the offensive and defensive coordinators for the Lions to interview with the Bears, and it's going to happen this week. The Lions have publicly accepted both of those interview requests, and both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn will be interviewing for the vacant head coach of the Chicago Bears, which will be just a 1-hour video meeting via Zoom between Thursday and Saturday. So between 1/9 and 1/11, which again, that absolutely is Thursday the 9th through Saturday the 11th. So them winning helped the Bears in that sense. There's going to be other names that are going to surface with the playoffs that we won't be able to interview once that gets going. Only reason we get to interview these guys is because of them having the bye week.
Yep. Gonna be a freaking juicy piece of news next week. I mean, I don't know how quickly they can be hired or if they can officially, a little bit more about these playoff coach favorable type of hirings, but I remember
there's a rule that was implemented. I just don't know what it is. I'll see if I can scramble to find it for you.
Yeah, it's just I don't know how quickly it can be said, because I do remember in years past full-on playoff teams with a first or second round play-in are announcing that, hey, after the playoffs, this coach will be our new coach. So it's kind of a weird thing to do. Given Ben Johnson's history and not even wanting to interview last year, really, and just saying he's coming back and doing all that stuff, I don't see him necessarily, taking a job and then announcing it to the team and then just saying, hey, after our playoff run, I'm out. But I want to know how early that can be done and how quickly that announcement can come, because I'm getting ants in the pants for the next 2 weeks until I hear some concrete stuff from teams with hirings. I don't even care if it's the Bears, but I do want to hear the official announcement of Vrabel. I want to hear the official announcement of Ben Johnson.
Well, I want to talk to you about Vrabel very specifically to cap this off, but I did find something from it's News Nation. I don't know how credible they are. It says that For assistants coaching on wildcard weekend, they can have a virtual interview of up to 3 hours beginning Tuesday, except for coaches on Minnesota and the Los Angeles Rams, who must wait until Wednesday because they play on Monday night. So I guess the timeline isn't delayed as much as I thought it would have. It says that these coaches must wait until January 27th, when either they were eliminated from the playoffs or have a bye week before the Super Bowl. Coaches on the Super Bowl teams are allowed to be interviewed through February 2nd, but are forbidden from talking to other NFL teams after that until February 10th, the day after the Super Bowl. So I don't know if there's ever been a situation where a Super Bowl coordinator is coaching in the Super Bowl knowing that he already is a head coach for another team.
Okay, I could be wrong in that line, but I do feel like I have seen things of that nature before. Maybe not. Maybe
I feel like
a
I have
first
too.
round type of thing. I don't know what I'm referencing, but I
Maybe
feel like
the
that's
Eagles.
something that I can remember.
Maybe the Eagles.
Right?
They
With,
lost both of their coordinators.
Shane Steichen and I'm forgetting the Arizona one.
Speaking of Arizona, did you know who is on the short list for the Chicago Bears? Drew Petzing. I would love to throw that photo up right now, but
yeah, Drew Petzing is my if we don't get at this point, if we don't get Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel, my third choice just for the memes is Drew Petzing, because I can survive a year of Drew Petzing with just the comedy.
Throw up Cliff Victorious chat. The Rooney Rule, which by the way is total bullshit. Okay, let me set the stage. I think I've already described it, but just so that we have kind of everything condensed into this bit. The New England Patriots today have interviewed Byron Leftwich and another name who is escaping me right now, which is very unfortunate. They knocked that one out of the park. They've eliminated that. The New England Patriots are going to be interviewing Mike Vrabel to be their head coach, potentially, on Thursday. But did you know who is going to be interviewing Mike Vrabel before that, on the same day? The Chicago Bears. So right now it's going to be a Mike Vrabel interview, which has already happened with the Jets. Then Vrabel is going to interview with the Chicago Bears, and then directly after that will be with the New England Patriots. Now, there were reports, and Antonio Pierce in his after-game end-of-season interview said that management had not told him anything otherwise as far as him not being the head coach next year. Well, today we've already told you guys, Antonio Pierce has been fired, let go of, whatever you want to say, of head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And partial owner of the Las Vegas Raiders is Mike Vrabel's teammate, Super Bowl winning quarterback, and NFL legend Tom Brady. Do you think that Vrabel escapes the interview with Robert Kraft this Thursday?
No. I think that's what you're implying, and basically saying that by giving a Rooney Rule interview today, it's lining up the Patriots to not let Mike Vrabel walk out of that building.
Now, flip side real fast. Can you envision a scenario where the Bears don't let Vrabel leave?
Is that because
I can't?
But can they do that?
Yeah.
If they haven't interviewed a Rooney Rule target.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, they haven't. They'd be able to interview and claim they've interviewed Thomas Brown, right?
Brown.
So it's
I
two.
don't think they're allowed to make that claim unless they've actually done an official NFL interview that they log. And
well,
that's
what they do is they'd come out with
implying.
that in the middle of the night before Thursday if that's what they were going to end up doing.
I thought that's kind of where you were implying, because that is what Robert Kraft and the Patriots just accomplished by interviewing Byron Leftwich and checking the box for the Rooney Rule. They don't face any fines or repercussions from the NFL when they don't let Mike Vrabel leave the building on Thursday at the end of the day. Because if another team does not do that, they are not allowed to do what you're implying, which is if the Bears don't imply, if the first interview is Pete Carroll and then it's Mike Vrabel, they are, I think, obligated to at least let him leave, walk out, go through the day of interviews. I don't know how quickly those processes work, but what the Patriots are doing by interviewing Byron Leftwich today is drawing up contracts till Thursday that Mike Vrabel can sign on in the interview room. And I think part of that reason is firing Gerard Mayo an hour after the game implies that they're not doing that unless they have some sort of under-the-table agreement and or are expecting Mike Vrabel to know what they're doing, and then forcing an interview with Byron Leftwich, an incredibly underqualified candidate, just to check the box on the Rooney Rule, is laying the stage for Mike Vrabel. Let's just all be honest. Like, Mike Vrabel is not going anywhere other than New England. I think that's just
Well,
kind of.
I want to just ask, like, kind of really draw this out, okay? Because you made the fantastic point that the Los Angeles Chargers had Mike Vrabel at the 1 yard line last year to be their head coach until the University of Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh became their new head coach. What if the Bears were so blown away with Vrabel before he got a chance to interview with the Patriots? They said, "Look, man, we need you to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears, but we can't hire you yet. Go to New England and do your due diligence, and just don't make a decision yet. Please wait for us, so that the Bears can follow the process of the Rooney Rule in full before they are allowed to hire him." Now, with Mike Vrabel, though, with what I just said, Mike Vrabel is in such a power position that he could then say, "Okay, I'm going to go to the Raiders," because he may want to go and check out that opportunity as well. Do you think that that's any sort of a possibility? And I guess, in addition to that, have you ever seen a head coaching candidate have so much power? Because the way I'm describing this, the way I'm hearing myself talk about it, it feels like Mike Vrabel has all the power.
I do. I think it has happened in the past before, though, and I think really what ended up happening is the Jim Harbaugh cycle broke every NFL team's brain when they see a candidate like Mike Vrabel available. And what that does is when it breaks their brain this hard, it implies and it gives the candidate all the power. Because I think last year, obviously, Mike Vrabel ended up with no job. And to go from that extreme to this extreme, I think is just a testament to what NFL GMs and owners are looking at the Chargers and being like, they didn't know what the fuck they were doing last year. Look at them now. And so we got to do that.
Well,
we
hold
need
on.
the next one. So
I'm not going to be able to explain this perfectly as far as the chronological order. I like that comment about how Jim Harbaugh's hiring kind of really stirred the pot of the NFL coaching kind of process, because I do remember Jim Harbaugh spending the majority of a day, 8, 12, 16 hours with the Minnesota Vikings, and he was at the sense where it was like, okay, I'm not going to leave Minnesota, I'm just waiting for this contract offer to come, and it never happened. So that
was a similar situation with the Raiders too.
Sure, but that's what I'm saying is maybe the Chargers did know what they were doing, and they had Vrabel at the 1 yard line, and then in the back of their ear, they were like, what? Harbaugh hasn't been hired by the Vikings? And they kind of just steered the ship right into that and just crash landed, and that's what kind of fucked everything up. Now you're at the 12th hour, the 11th hour, whatever the term is, and Mike Vrabel is like, well, all these positions have already been filled, fuck this. So
I think that is kind of how it ended up happening, because it's similar to, I mean, let's just say the Lions reach the Super Bowl and Ben Johnson is basically not allowed to be hired until February 20th.
But we've already interviewed him by that because of how things have shaken out, right? So the Bears might decide, hey, you're good enough to be our head coach. We're going to do our due diligence. We can't hire you.
Well, here's the thing. You know how I feel about the Ben Johnson thing. I think Ben Johnson could literally go in there, shit on Ryan Poles' desk, flip him off, and then probably still get the job.
Let me see if I can quickly get the names of the people who are included in this head coaching interview for the Bears.
So I think that's kind of what I'm saying here is it doesn't really matter if the Bears, and I think because of Ryan Poles' situation, and we'll get into the Bears shortly, I think Ryan Poles, like I've been predicting, is going to have the most cookie cutter offseason a Bears fan could hope for. I don't know if you're not a big gambling fan, but there's like an offsite sports book. I think it was Bovada, and they re-released the probabilities and betting odds of who's going to be the head coach of the Bears. Number one on the list went from like all these guys that used to be top choices, like Thomas Brown, Cliff Kingsbury. Number one is now almost even odds. If you know gambling, plus 100, minus 100, basically zero means it's like a likely possibility. The more negative you are, the more confident it is. And Ben Johnson is the plus 100, is the number one, choice there. Cliff, to answer your question, I think what would end up happening is Mark Brunell, former quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who's now the quarterback's coach in Detroit, would probably end up becoming his offensive coordinator. So Mark
if
Brunell,
he doesn't find his way into Jacksonville, I know that the link there is that Ben Johnson would be the head coach and Mark Brunell would follow him. Don't sleep on Antoine Randall L as well. Fantastic wide receivers coach.
Very nice. Yeah, agreed. That's kind of the initial thing that I know. But yeah, I'll put that on stage for you. But yeah, that's kind of where I feel about that. So if Ben Johnson takes a 1 hour interview on Zoom on Thursday and the Bears just went, you know what, we're done. We're gonna go through these interview processes, but we know that if Ben has agreed to it, then we'll just wait till February 20th. I think yet again that is just cookie cutter waste of time bullshit that I think the Bears are totally capable of pulling. Um, where you keep interviewing good candidates, but Ben Johnson on paper or on a Zoom call agreed on January 10th or whatever it is, January 9th, that he'll be our next coach and he can work with Ryan Poles and yada yada yada. And so the Bears are just going to stop doing due diligence. They'll go through the motions, they'll shake the hands, but they'll wait till February and keep Ben Johnson.
You know what, man? It almost feels like that hour interview, if that's exactly what it's going to be, is going to just be determining what they're going to do with Ryan Poles. Because it almost be like if the Bears speak to him and he's like, yeah, I can't express, Chicago, how much I'm interested in coaching the iconic Caleb Williams, but this fat ass Ozempic abuser, I can't work with him. Then the Bears are doing it early enough to be able to get a new general manager. They'd obviously be competing with the Jets and the Titans at this point, and I don't know if there's going to be any other positions that open.
I
I would love to throw Cliff's comment on the screen just above Inferius regarding I am hoping. Dave, tell me straight up, do you think the Bears are smart enough to do that?
Oh, fuck no. That is such a chess move. That is such a chess move that Cliff is presenting where it's like, I'm sorry, Cliff, to give them that much credit is just like, you might be smarter than them because here's the other part of what you just finished saying, Carl, and that kind of ties into that is what you're saying is like, well, they're going to have a 2 hour Zoom meeting about what to do about Ryan Poles. First of all, the same way we talk about, well, Caleb Williams should have some input in the coaching hire. Not a lot, though. Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel has earned the right to say, this is who my player personnel guy is. And I know what I'm doing, and he knows what I'm doing, and I know what he's doing. Ben Johnson has not gone through draft processes. He has not been in GM rooms. Maybe he has. Okay,
Now
fine.
hold
But
on.
as an
I will
offensive
direct caveat
coordinator,
and just say if Ben Johnson was directly responsible for any sort of Jamo Williams, Jameer Gibbs, Penei Sewell, those are motherfucking slam dunks. So if that's the Ben Johnson that we're getting, I'm all on board for that. And unfortunately, my optimism is coming out of a place of terror because outside of Rabel, I really don't like this pool of coaching candidates.
me neither. But the point of what I'm trying to say here too is to say like Cliff's comment of are they playing three-dimensional chess? Get the fuck out of here. They don't know how to play checkers. Are we talking about a team in the Bears that have a press conference where George thanks Matt Eberflus for his services first today? Let's go.
So George
Let's get into this.
McCaskey downplayed the fact that the Bears fired a head coach in the middle of a season for the first time ever. He said that didn't weigh, but I feel like as a historian, he probably does feel like that was such a magnitude, significant moment that the Bears had never done before that he just wanted to be courteous. It feels like he's just like a nice guy, pipsqueak, self-proclaimed fan.
That's fine. Who gives a shit about your niceness? Like at the end of the day, he repeats. We've talked about this. There was the guy who put together the clip of him just saying the same thing. If you're saying the same thing every time, you're either not learning from your mistakes because you're too stupid or you don't care. Either
Is
way, it's an
is that clip
unforgivable mistake.
readily available on like their
I can
social
send
media
it to
page?
you on Twitter. Yeah, I
Send
can.
it to me. We don't have to share it here. I'm going to listen to it later on and see if I can find a common thread. One sentence. There's got to be something. And that's over the course of how long? His entire tenure?
10 years. Yeah.
Oh,
No, it's
just
not
10
even. They,
years.
they they could only do 10 years because they couldn't find any more from
Oh,
their
and
archive.
end of season or when they fired a head coach?
It was a head coach or like people being moved on from. Or
There's
bad
got
seasons. Some of them are
oh,
end of
I
seasons because they're just disappointing seasons that they're just addressing.
I'm talking to future Carl again, so hello. But yes, I've got to figure out the common phrase between that, and we're gonna abuse that moving forward because it's just
Yeah.
comical at this point, man.
And that's what I'm saying though. But like to say, let me round this out. Cliff mentioning that are they playing three-dimensional chess with taking Mike McCarthy off the board. I can't possibly fathom what your comment was, Carl, that they would give Ryan Poles the green light to go out and basically say, I'm making the final call and yada, yada, yada. And then Ben Johnson coming in here and being like, I can't work with this guy. And they go, you know what, Ryan, what we just did 3 days ago, like George would have like an ulcer of guilt of being like, I paraded Ryan out there and fucking had him speak for 3 hours and do press conferences, and now I gotta fire him. Oh, and then he'd fucking just have like he'd be shitting blood for a month. Like he couldn't do it. And so to say that that's what Ben Johnson's interview is going to be applied to, no, it's going to be, hey Ryan, this is Ben. Hey Ben, this is Ryan. Do you guys like each other? He's only going to be here for a year if he fucks this up, but you know, that's what it is. I think what Paulie's mentioning is they did that to Matt Nagy. They did that to Matt Eberflus, not because they're clever, is because they're incompetent and needed to sleep in. They couldn't have a meeting an hour earlier on a day they're firing Matt Eberflus. They did everything regular. They just went to work on Monday, had Matt Eberflus do his regularly scheduled programming. After the fact, 40 minutes later, they fucking fired him. It's not because they were sneaky. It's because they're that incompetent. A good team would meet Sunday night on a Zoom call, have a goddamn meeting, be like, so we're firing Matt in the morning? Yeah, we're firing Matt in the morning. The Patriots can fire Gerard Mayo 40 minutes after a game. The Bears can't do it 12 hours. They needed more time. It's insane. There's no chance, Carl, that Ben Johnson is going to be able to go in there, say Ryan Poles is out, and Ryan Poles is out. If I find out that Ben Johnson, that was his breaking point, and that's what ended up working out, I will unalive myself on this pod. Like what, you know what I'm saying? Like what you were saying, they can't do that. They will not. What Kevin Warren said now, which was much more interesting to me, and I loved that backhanded saucy ass fucking comment from Kevin Warren, was, well, I forget how it went. It was, will Ryan Poles be here for a long time or something like that moving forward? Kevin Warren's quote was, well, 1 year is an eternity in the NFL.
Yeah, the best way that I saw that comment phrased on Twitter from someone else was essentially, say that to your wife. See how far that gets you.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. So he has a year, but he's a lame duck. And so their Bears are just going to bear. They have a lame duck GM that they know that they're going to probably fire next year. They're hiring a coach to match up with a quarterback that he didn't draft. And then there's going to be a new GM that's going to end up being the next coach's boss that don't know each other. It's wild.
Let me give a caveat to you. The infamous Greg Gabriel, former player of he was, here are his credentials right here. 30 plus years of scouting in the NFL, scouting director, all of that good stuff, right? Little fact that has relevance from today. When Lovie Smith was hired, general manager Jerry Angelo only had 1 year left on his contract. He also had the same point. He was also in the same point of his general managing career as Ryan Poles, which is the third year. So, again, to steal right off from Greg Gabriel's beautiful mind, just hire the right guy and things will take care of themselves.
Well, that was 2001.
Sure, you're not wrong there, but trying to be optimistic here.
I don't. What thing can you tell me that was relevant 23 years ago is still relevant today? In any
the Bears tried to run the exact same scheme. They just modernized it a little bit and said, Hunter Hillenmeyer, you are now Kyler Gordon. Defense was pretty good.
32nd ranked DVOA defense?
I don't know if that's true. I think that it was 32nd in the time that they had moved on from Matt Eberflus. I don't know what the end of season results were, but can we find that real quick on the spot?
Which part?
I'm looking if we can find that for DVOA in 2024. Final DVO rankings, FNF Fantasy. Total. So, is DVOA a percentages?
No, DVOA is based on rankings. Shouldn't be percentages.
Well, yeah. It's a total percentage. I guess the team. Are we looking at defensive DVOA? Are you saying that's what it was?
Yeah, defensive DVOA. Yeah.
Is this just for the playoff teams? I don't see Chicago. What's going on here, man?
Well,
This
while you
website's
look, I'm just
trash.
gonna go through some of these comments. Like
Please.
Bearsky asking, "You don't think they can top that with firing Ryan Poles?" First of all, today's conference was not forced. They did not have to do anything. And if they did do anything, they could have come out and cookie cuttered, vanilla the whole fucking thing, depending on who's the cook in the kitchen. And they still don't know. And that's why no, they can't top that with firing Ryan Poles. I don't think they have it in their heart to do it. I don't think, because if you fire him, it's out of a strategic move, not ineptitude. And anything shocking the Bears can do is out of complete ineptitude, not out of like, oh wow, well, like if they did that to Ryan Poles, they might make him a statue. Like just out of, we're so sorry, you're gonna go down as the guy who we sacrificed for Ben Johnson, and then like let it, I don't know, get him a bronze statue in front of Hallis Hall or something, because they would just feel so bad about it. For Prometheus, they might re-sign him. If Ben Johnson comes here and wins like 8 or 9 games, Ryan Poles is probably staying. Now, if they don't, and it's like 4 games, you're going to have yet again the same shit where GM is out, GM gets hired, didn't hire this coach, coaches did not draft this quarterback, no one worked for each other. But you guys need to figure out how to work together, guys. None of that matters, because that was another comment from Kevin Warren today, I believe, the Jerry Angelo-esque type comment, or from George, I think, where do you think that GM and coach should be hired and fired at the same time? And they said, I don't think that necessarily matters.
Yeah,
So,
that was really embarrassing. Even if, however you feel about that, I feel like just the answer itself is embarrassing. It needs to be better.
100%. And so I personally think that the delay on firing Flus was because George didn't want to and had to be talked into it, and George is not waking up early. And Farius, that comment, I could break down what the fuck is wrong with that on like so many levels. If George can't be bothered to deal with his team, then you guys need to stop buying tickets and t-shirts and jerseys, because if he can't be bothered to be woken up early to make a franchise altering move, then you should not be bothered to watch the fucking games. Secondly, George should have no fucking input on this. If he's a fan,
Sign the check.
Sign the check, shut the fuck up. If you're claiming to be a fan and you're saying everything that you keep saying, then they shouldn't even have to consult George. It should just be Ryan firing him the next day. And part of the problem is George probably hired a guy that has the same feelings as he does. That's why you saw the depressed puppy Ryan Poles feel so bad about firing Matt Eberflus. Shouldn't feel that fucking bad about it, dude. The guy sucked at his job, and that's all it is. Sucked at his job. He deserved to be fired. You fire him. You want to keep your job? Fire a guy that's bad at his job, because he's making you look bad at your job. Because Ryan Poles probably isn't as bad as his job as Matt Eberflus is as bad as he was at his. But he's making Ryan Poles look fucking awful. We and Paulie talked about this. I've never seen a GM approval rating go as low in one season as I have this year overall. The guy went from a masterclass genius, top 5 GM in the league at the beginning of this offseason to one of the worst GMs that needs to be fired this year. People telling me he's not on the hot seat. He's not, by definition, that the Bears don't have him on the hot seat. Any other team, he would be on the fucking hot seat. Any other team, he would be absolutely fighting for his life right now.
Don't want to give myself too much homework, but it would also be very interesting to see how long would it have taken for a general manager to be fired after they traded away the first overall pick. Because there's been a handful of first overall pick trades that had ended up being very successful for the team that traded it away. But Ryan Poles, I think that's why you had that huge variance, right? Because you fleeced the Panthers. You fleeced the Panthers.
Yeah.
And now, oh my God, you got the first overall pick again? And Caleb Williams is in the draft? Just that alone is why Ryan Poles was held in such high esteem. Because he got lucky.
Too, Carl? Going into, Paul found a clip talking about how the Bears were going to do the approach to the Caleb Williams draft. And my opinion, going into before this final Justin Fields season ended, was we predicted there would be probably a pick 7 and a pick 9, right? Like
what do you mean? The picks that we'd have received and have going into the year we got Caleb Williams?
When you gave Carolina Bryce Young, I don't think anybody predicted them to give you the first pick in the draft the following year.
That's correct. Bryce Young going to that football team felt like they could be something, and I feel like they actually made that move because they felt that their division was weak. So yeah, you're correct.
Everything happens the same way. What Paul and I were saying, and my prediction before even the last Justin Fields season was, what you're going to end up seeing is a mediocre performance from Justin Fields. We're going to get the 10th pick. Carolina's going to give us the 13th pick, and you're going to package that shit to get to 3 and get Drake May. Right? And now when you talk about the fleecing and the perspective change of what, hindsight is, and what Carolina gifting you that first overall pick and not making you pick anybody other than Caleb Williams. Imagine if, God forbid, you had packaged those picks and the highest you could have gotten was Michael Penix or Bo Nix on this team, or you had the 10th and the 17th pick from Carolina. You package those. This draft doesn't end up being, Caleb and Rome. It ends up being you packaging.
Well, Dave, you would have held on. You would have held on to Justin Fields, right? And I feel like I credit Ryan Poles for moving on from Justin Fields, even if it was obvious, because there's a lot of armchair general managers that would have said, oh, we could not only trade the first overall pick again for more picks, but we could do that every year. We could never have a first-round pick and always have 3 to 4 to 5 day 2 picks and have Justin Fields and have this amazing roster around Justin Fields. I've got a fucking surprise for you. There's going to be a really fucking good team in this NFL, probably the Eagles, that don't win the Super Bowl because they don't have a fucking good quarterback. And yes, Jalen Hurts makes a lot of money, but you have to get a quarterback that can win. And if Ryan Poles would have kept Justin Fields, and then we would have had this season, I would have fired him myself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, and those armchair GMs are also the guys that are playing Madden, and when Madden lets you trade like the first overall pick for the next 7 years worth of first overall picks, they say, see how easy it is?
Or trade Kendall Vildor for a second-round pick, absolutely.
Right, yeah. It's the same shit. They're talking about the same people here, but what I'm saying is, like, potentially this team would have been in a better situation, which would have maybe been a sliding doors moment of Matt Eberflus staying, because with the 10th pick, you're picking, I don't know, Rome Odunze or an offensive lineman to pair up with Justin Fields and whatever, but
bless you.
Caught that one. But yeah, whatever. I don't even know where I was going with this, but fuck that and fuck this. And Ryan Poles basically has been riding the coattails of that one trade for 2 full years. And it's all bad, and George being a problem is still so relevant. And I know Paul is going to always argue this with me. Maybe I don't think there's anything that'll ever convince him, but I've never been more sure that until George McCaskey is out of the way, this will never be fixed.
Last year's draft,
glaring herpes sore. It's not sustainable.
Last year's draft still has potential to turn itself around with the names that you got. You got Darnell Wright, who, by the way, the lovely PFF, who I love to hate, PFF told us that Darnell Wright was the highest-ranked player for the Chicago Bears this year. I think it was a slam dunk and a trade-down pick. Gervon Dexter can become a good player for you if you supplement that line with another really good player. If you can get Gervon Dexter to not play 85% of the snaps and actually have a rotation, he'll be more effective for you. Tyreek Stevenson, that's the key here. Tyreek Stevenson, if he can end up being a starting cornerback for you, hell, if he does something stupid in transition to safety because Jaquan Brisker can't stay healthy, if you can get value out of Tyreek Stevenson, those first 3 picks are really, really good, man. Zach Pickens is a total fucking bust. Worse move than Chase Claypool. Roschon Johnson, we're talking about the same draft, by the way, still. Roschon Johnson, if he can contribute in some sort of CJ Ham, special teams captain, fullback role, that's a good pick for what it was. And then Tyler Scott. Tyler Scott's probably the X factor too, where imagine if he was your wide receiver 3. Imagine if Tyler Scott was Tank Dell. And you're not having to give up all that money for Keenan Allen. You've got a good wide receiver core at that point. But Tyler Scott right now is contributing on special teams at the very least. He was a special teams ace along with Josh Blackwell, and he's returning kicks at this point. That draft before this past one, where he drafted a punter before Bucky Irving, can be a very good draft for this team.
It can, and I don't dismiss any drafts until it's 2 to 3 years later. The only problem with that is now you have a totally different coach who's going to ask for different ingredients. And who the hell knows how many of these players are going to be just on this team.
And
that's
maybe,
one thing I do like. Zach Pickens is just like a straight cut now, as opposed to being this lingering thing. Because one thing that Ryan Poles
not
does,
according to Lauren Cox as of yesterday, but I didn't want to insult him.
yeah, that's fine. I mean, give him time, whatever. Maybe he'll have a good training camp. I don't really care. But
he can have time at McDonald's for all I fucking care. Fuck Zach Pickens, man. I'm sorry.
I agree, but here's the difference too, is like I said, Ryan Poles, and another negative on him that is just an absolute glaring weakness. Maybe this isn't something that's more attributable to more GMs than I think of, because in recent memory, Ryan Poles is one of his biggest faults is he cannot let go of a mistake. And I don't know who the fuck his advisors are.
Time. We're talking about Velus Jones Jr., we're talking about Nate Davis. And maybe with his, face to the flame, maybe he'll learn.
I doubt it, because it's a George trait too.
I like it.
It's a George McCaskey trait too.
I like it a lot.
And that's what I mean by George tends to hire guys that remind him of himself. And it's just kind of what the thing is.
It's direct lineage right there.
And so that's what I mean. Where we can argue this till we're blue in the face. George needs to feel empowered and cool, and God forbid you say, yeah, man, I want to fucking win. He's just going to go in the interview room and just cringe and squirm and just tell you to get the fuck out, or please leave my office right now. And until he's out of here, I just can't. I've never been more convinced that until he's gone, nothing's going to change, especially after that conference today. I honestly wasn't even that riled up about it moving in. And then we got into this NFL chat, and talking about good football teams just pissed me off about how this shit is run, because it's something that I think we're moving into the phase of other fans of other fan bases just going like, feeling pity for you. Not even just like, haha, the Bears suck. It's pity now. We're in the pity phase. And secondly, like, they hear this shit and they can't fathom what they're hearing. I think like we're used to it because we're so close. That's kind of what's funny about local media with football, is like you feel like you know more than the national fan, but sometimes taking a step back makes it better. Where me and you were going, it's so obvious Baltimore's going to step on fucking Pittsburgh, while every Pittsburgh fan is going, no, look at the advanced analytics. We play them really well and da-da-da-da-da. Whereas like it's when you get to take a step back, you get to go like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? It's obvious that they're going to dog stomp you. And then every Pittsburgh fan's going, well, no, let's wait till Sunday. The same thing with the Bears. We're watching this shit from close up and just being like, well, we have Caleb, and if we can somehow get a coach and we can somehow get an offensive line together with that coach, it's such a fucking wing and a prayer 5% chance we live on. But because we're so close, it amplifies that 5% to like 80. But everyone else is starting to look at this shit from afar, being like, I can't comprehend what that press conference was about. You had the general manager talking glowingly about his process and his experience over the last 3 years, and how all of that is going to make a difference in his next head coach hiring process, while simultaneously the president, like an hour later, is basically saying, well, he's on the fucking hot seat. He better do a good job. And then you have the owner of the team being offended at Bears fans selling their tickets to Lions fans.
And he underlined that in the sense that he didn't like his football team being drowned out and potentially having to move to a silent count.
He says that
I
shit
kind
every
of
2
respect
years.
it.
He doesn't mean jack shit. He doesn't.
You would sure hope
stupid, or he doesn't mean it. I think I'm starting to get to the point where I think George is a very, very good fucking liar.
Yeah, there's a good comment from Cliff that we didn't address. He said that I believe Cliff said that Cliff negotiates for a living, and that he would sure hope that the Bears are better at it. And that was in regards to them doing what they were doing potentially with McCarthy. But to that point, yeah, if George McCaskey is a fantastic liar, I would not be surprised whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, it's a business to him. He should just be treating it like a business and signing the fucking checks, not be included in hiring a head coach. But I'm not sure.
I honestly, well, to your point of him treating it like a business, I think if he is a savvy businessman who does not care, which he doesn't live in Chicago. He walks through tailgates, and I think it's almost like measured at this point. I'm leaning more towards that, where he goes like, you know what's going to get me to look like the everyman this year? I'll just walk through a couple fucking tailgates. I'll say how upset we are, about how frustrated we are. I'm like you. I'm a fan too. I'm just like you. And everyone's just starting to catch on to the bullshit because I think he's just a good liar. Because what's a better way to make you feel invested in business? Well, it's called nostalgia. It's how Coca-Cola sells you fucking cans every winter.
By the way, fuck Coca-Cola. For the first time ever I saw that AI commercial, just fuck that shit. I hate that.
Me too. It pissed me off too. But that's what I think George is onto. And I think he's clever in that way where he goes like, these are your bears. These are our bears. We're the same. These are our bears. You can't just abandon us. If this was a colder business, or God forbid, man, I would love some cold, calculated motherfucker to just swoop in and make a second Chicago team. It would be.
There would have to be a situation where the Cardinals get dissolved or something goes south there, and then they would have to be brought back to Chicago, right? Imagine an AFC Cardinals in Chicago.
The jump would be so Texans Cowboys monumental, except worse. It would be. I wouldn't necessarily know if I'd become a fan of whoever came here, but I would love to see that shit just get in George's head.
And ironically, they're really setting the stage for something like that with the way that they're treating this Arlington Heights and the museum campus situation.
Yeah, and right Farius, thank you for joining, man. Thank you so much. Had fun chatting with you as well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And Farius, thank you very much, buddy.
You too. Have a good night, man. We're going long, so I understand. Yeah,
I mean, I'm getting at the tail end of things here. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what could happen. Obviously, that Chicago franchise would have to sell that to the hypothetical formerly Arizona Cardinals franchise. It would get really mucky. But essentially, I'm just saying there's two obvious spots for a football location in Chicago, in the state of Illinois at the very least.
I think we just needed to address how horrendous today's media thing was. And for anyone who has hope, and God bless you. God bless you. I'm just more, pessimistic. Maybe I've just seen it too much before. Maybe I'm just over the bullshit. But I saw nothing. You can just say, like, yeah, Ben Johnson's going to come here and win 14 games. But the same way everybody was predicting 12, 13 wins this year, I said, what evidence do you have to say that? So if you're just telling me Ben Johnson's going to come over from Detroit and absolutely crush it, cool. You might be right. And in a year, when I'm wrong, I'll be very happy. I get to hedge my emotions. I get to emotionally hedge my bets. But there is zero. You have nothing to give me to prove that's gonna happen.
The only thing that I'll say to cap this off, if you were to let go of Ryan Poles, and then you get a new staff in here, a new general manager, a new coaching staff, and Caleb Williams isn't exactly what that management wants, Caleb Williams is on his way out of the door. And Kevin Warren's exact comments today were, we found a franchise quarterback, and I don't think that. I know that. So maybe, just maybe, having a lame duck GM essentially sacrifice a year, which aka is an eternity, and sacrifice himself to ensure that Caleb Williams is initially invested in to better his chances of being on this franchise and succeeding moving forward, maybe that's going to be a good thing, and it just sucks in the moment.
Potentially, I agree. If Caleb Williams is here for 8 to 10 years, which at that point it's going to be up to him how long he's willing to tolerate the dysfunction. But the only silver lining that will get me fully back on track, Carl, is what you implied, which is if whoever they interview is so adamant that Ryan Poles needs to be there, that comes with an implication that they made it clear that George needs to never step foot in their fucking office, right? And that you're never going to be involved, which, granted, I understand George is not involved with draft picks now. He's not involved with signings now. He does just sign the fucking checks in that way. But when he hires the people to make those decisions, they're always consistently similar. And that's why I said it's almost routine. If they sign Ben Johnson, does that not fall into the pattern of the thing that we were talking about yesterday? Right.
Not only does it fall into the pattern, it's the definition of the pattern.
Right. And so the way that you break that pattern this time around is you say, you know what, you're absolutely right. We have no idea what we're doing. Mike Vrabel comes in with his own GM and his own scouting staff. And we're talking about hundreds of people, man. I think I gave this fun fact to Paul. I don't know if you were there. The Bears have one of the largest front offices and staffs in the NFL, and they all don't know what they're doing. They just hire people. So what does that tell you? Like, it doesn't require more things being thrown at the solution. It just takes the right things being thrown at the problem. So if Vrabel takes the job and he is hiring his own GM and player personnel guy, which that's another reason why people are even just deluding themselves about Vrabel. Vrabel wants a GM and player personnel guy to be the same person. What are you implying, that guy's going to take the third in charge job under Ian Cunningham and Ryan Poles? And the guy that Mike Vrabel wants as his main GM is going to be the third guy on that totem pole? Get the fuck out of here.
So
that's why they both need to go.
As far as the executive career, I just, for the hell of it, tried to see if there would be any ties between Ian Cunningham and Mike Vrabel, and I wasn't able to find anything. But maybe there's something behind the hood as far as their early life that I haven't been able to discover. It'll be fun to see if there's anything silly like that. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Got about 2 weeks. So
if Mike Vrabel leaves New England on Thursday, and on Friday he is not employed as the head coach of the New England Patriots, we're gonna have something fun to talk about, in my opinion.
I agree. It's gonna get more interesting. I think the likelihood of that happening is small, but it'll be more interesting in terms of the chaos of the coaching search. But
so big news to end everything for anyone who's just coming in. It's specific to the Bears, but biggest news: Mike McCarthy for the Bears, no. Pete Carroll for the Bears, maybe.
There you go. All right, Carl. Awesome show as always. Went way longer than I expected. I think for you the same. Great NFL show.
We had some catch-up work to do, right? We missed a couple of weeks, but hopefully we'll be back to it throughout the playoffs. Like I said, I'm very much looking forward to this weekend. Not for the fact that I won't just be working, but we've actually got 3 days of football, which I think it's silly that a playoff game is on a Monday. But Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you'll have a bunch of good games. We've already given our predictions and all of that. If you guys want to watch back the video, if you're listening live, I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. We'll be seeing each other next week, and let's. I would say go Bears, but there's nothing to root about for the Bears right now. So let's go.
Go Caleb Williams.
Go football. Let's enjoy some great football.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll get a change and see some good football. Not a scrappy football game where your best receiver fumbled the football and then you asked a rookie to win the game on the road with a minute left and one timeout. We're going to watch some playoff football.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Have a good night. Thanks everybody who contributes as well. Always, we really need to emphasize how much we appreciate seeing, those.
There's some real consistency. Dave, let me explain this to you. There's some real consistency going on here, okay? We had one of the channels that I'm a part of, Bears Country Productions, go live. Their host talked for an hour and a half while we were live. He was literally engulfed in our show. Now we're talking while Bare Their Souls is live on Barroom Network. So anyone who's in here spending your time with us cannot express how much we appreciate that. Thank you.
We really do. And one more shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for participating in the chat. It helps drive the conversation. We love talking to you guys. As the seasons and off seasons get boring, if you're ever a person who feels like they want to even hop on a camera, we're never against that. If you got some skills to it, we'd love to chat with some people on a Zoom and throw you in there. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. And
like a video. I always thought that this would be a good thing for the Bears Country podcast. But if you guys are interested in just like a thought that you have, right? Record a video and email it to us. We'll throw it up on the screen. We'll play it and then we'll react to it. So
yeah, much appreciated again. Yeah, I would love to. Well, we're always evolving. We're growing. We're getting better at this every year, every day, every year. So hopefully next year is going to be even more fun and better news to report on and all that stuff. But we'll be with you guys through the playoffs for sure, doing some draft stuff, doing some mocks, reacting to some coach hirings, and then, we'll keep it going. So thank you again, and we will see everybody next week for sure for some reaction.
Peace out, y'all.
Take care.